across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
A very, very good morning to you, and it absolutely is a very good morning. I don't care what side of any war you've ever been on. I don't care whether you're British, Israeli or anything else. Today is a great day. If you don't think it's a great day that 20 completely innocent people, yes, some of them are soldiers, but you know what? Our soldiers were conscripted during the last World War, and when they were freed, we were happy about that too. That 20 men have been released by Hamas hostage takers to not just to the Red Cross, but now in the hands of the IDF. Many of them now the first 7 in the arms of their families after 2 years and almost a week held in captivity, in tunnels, starved, beaten, tortured, while the bombs have dropped overhead as the IDF waged war on Hamas. It is an extraordinary, extraordinary day, and absolutely welcome this day. And I'm very, very, very proud to have you join us. And whether you are listening on DAB+ radio or on your smart speaker, watching on YouTube or your connected device, thank you for joining us here at Talk, the home of common sense, with me, Julia Hartley-Brewer. Don't forget, if you do miss anything of the show, and I'm with you live until 1, you can go to my YouTube page, the Julia Hartley-Brewer Show. You can hit subscribe, and you never have to miss a thing. Coming up in this hour, as I say, Hamas have released all of the surviving hostages from Gaza under a deal with Israel to end the 2-year war after 738 days in captivity. Hamas are also under orders to release the bodies of the remaining 28 hostages later today, but there is growing concern that some have been lost. Meanwhile, Donald Trump has arrived, hailed as a hero in Israel to mark the historic day, declaring the war is over. He is going to be speaking in the Israeli parliament, the Knesset. Shortly we'll take that live. He's also going to then travel in a matter of hours to Sharm el-Sheikh in Egypt, where he's going to meet other world leaders, including, apparently still thinks he's a world leader, Keir Starmer, gathering for the signing ceremony to mark the Gaza peace plan later. Meanwhile, the US ambassador to Israel, Mike Huckabee, has accused Labour of being delusional for claiming that the UK played a key role in securing the peace in Gaza. And the Prime Minister faces questions in the Commons when he gets back over what role he and his National Security Advisor, Jonathan Powell, played in the collapse of the trial for 2 Britons accused of spying for China. This comes amid warnings that Britain is at risk of falling into a Chinese debt trap due to its reliance on borrowing from Beijing. What is going on? And let's hear answers in the House of Commons, where we can just see how he dances around the head of a pin to find out, well, what actually really is going on. All that coming up. Delighted to say it. Joining me in the studio today, commentator Sam Armstrong as well. Very, very good morning to you. And it's so nice that today, particularly after last week, and we've seen, harrowing scenes the week beforehand of the synagogue attack in Manchester, the horrific celebrations of that on our streets Saturday a week ago, and again this Saturday by the supposed pro-Palestinian mob who are just simply anti-Israel and anti-Jew. Call yourself pro-Hamas, call yourselves what you actually are. And then last Tuesday's anniversary, second anniversary of the October 7th attacks, and again more celebrations on our streets. Today, finally, we are seeing proper, genuine celebrations. Hostages Square in Tel Aviv, across every street in Israel, the joy at the return of the 20 remaining live hostages. What are your thoughts?
Well, good news has been in short supply for 737 days.
38 today.
So these people have spent in the most appalling conditions. Already the footage that we are seeing shows emaciated faces, shows faces that haven't seen daylight in almost 2 years, over 2 years. And can you imagine the ordeal that each and every one of these hostages has gone through? To not know each day if you're going to die, to be kept in a tunnel underground in the most appalling of conditions. And of course, 28, more than are coming home alive, were murdered by Hamas during their time in captivity.
Plenty others as well, but we've already had those bodies back.
And so this is a day, I think, in which of relief, but also I think for so many of those families, and of course you spoke to a guest last week who didn't know if their son was dead or alive.
Yeah, and unfortunately, when we spoke to him, Tamir Nimrodi is not on the list of live or dead bodies coming back. And we spoke to his mother, Herut, last week. So we just don't know. Also, a Nepalese student, Bipin Joshi. These names, they just, no one knows what's happened to them. And we may never.
But I want to punctuate the good news to say to say something that I think needs saying about the lies that have been told over the past year, the past 2 years. We were told that Benjamin Netanyahu would never do a peace deal because he was determined to keep it on to save his own political skin. Lie. In fact, he secured his objectives and he was so prepared to do a deal that he released 100 Hamas terrorists for every single hostage he got back. So I don't want to hear any of that.
Yep.
We were told that we needed to be carting around, sucking up to these people in order to get a diplomatic deal. Lie. Donald Trump, a president we were told was deeply dangerous, was far too aggressive, lacked the temperament to be president of the United States. Lie. Went in there, showed strength and negotiated a peace deal. And we were told that Hamas was broadly a nice enough organisation trying to run it. In fact, we saw even in their dying moments, the last stand of Hamas, they went in there with the hostages and these so-called so-called Gazan civilians that were moping around all of a sudden happened to all have AK-47s.
Yes.
It's amazing how obvious it is to identify who's who when Hamas have decided that when they've got a temporary ceasefire. Every single thing we have been told about this war by the BBC, by the Foreign Office, by the so-called experts has been total and utter hogswash. It was a nonsense and it played into the hands of those who have been prosecuting a consistent agenda of Jew hatred. Yeah. And some of them, by the way, who have told the ultimate lie that they were there for Gaza, they were there for the civilians. Well, we're going to see that that was a lie. When are we going to see it? Because they're going to be still out on the streets, still protesting, still showing support for a now dismantled terroristic organisation.
Well, they're not dismantled. No, they're not dismantled. That's the thing. And what's really interesting is we have seen execution squads. Hamas being very open about this, executing some of the clan leaders, because there's lots of different organisations in vying for control in Gaza. Blatant open executions. It's on film. Even the BBC has noticed it happen. I think there's a point where, enough people are messaging about this and there's enough video. You have to actually take the footage. I mean, they claim things are true, but they haven't even got any videos when Hamas has just told them to say it. So they may as well. This is, it is very, very blatant what is happening. This is going to descend into absolute chaos. Also, here's the thing. Despite all these people messaging, I survived the genocide, these are really quite healthy-looking people. They're healthier than a lot of people I see in Britain, and they have, quote, survived a genocide. And all these people who are talking about, the starvation. There are so many people looking, we couldn't get food in. Oh, let me look at your lovely new Mercedes that you're wheeling around doing the hot rods. I mean, come on. This is an absolute joke. I'd love to hear your thoughts about it. I must give you the number. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. Text the word talk and your message to 87222. Get in touch with us on X at talkTV. Calls are charged at the national rate. Text cost £1, standard network rate message. What did you make about Starmer joining world leaders in Egypt? We have some reports now that Netanyahu is going to join those leaders as well, Macron and others. And it's a load of world leaders who are apparently going to stand there and witness this peace plan. They've had sod all to do with it. The claim from Bridget Phillipson, the Education Secretary, utterly laughable on TV yesterday, that Britain had played a vital role. The only role they played was basically to undermine any negotiations by rewarding, that was the word that Hamas used, rewarding Hamas for October the 7th and holding hostages, saying we'll recognise the Palestinian state without even the most basic requirement of humanity, which was to hand back the hostages they had taken. What do you make of this? Because you had the US ambassador to Israel, Mike Huckabee. He's a serious player. He's he's not just a golf buddy, No. Serious player. He called the UK government delusional. A public tweet saying that Bridget Phillipson's comment was delusional. And then we get a tweet from Steve Witkoff, the international envoy and golf buddy of Donald Trump, where suddenly, just basically talking about, yes, the important role that Britain had played and praising it. And I would like to acknowledge the vital role of the United Kingdom in assisting in and coordinating efforts that have led us to this historic day in Israel. In particular, I want to recognise the incredible input and tireless efforts of National Security Advisor Jonathan Powell. This is not a normal thing to be happening. Why has that happened?
What cheeses me off about this most is that in international diplomacy, when you've got a good relationship with another country, and we have with the US, obviously had Donald Trump and had him in Windsor Castle and all the rest of it, you get to call in some favours, some. But that number is finite and discrete. And boy, oh boy, do we have some favours we need from the US right now. We need them to continue helping us with security. We need some trade help. We need help on all manner of issues. But instead of getting any of those, instead of asking for help with something that was going to benefit the country,
British people,
Keir Starmer has called in a favour to save the neck of his own national security advisor, who is in hot water because he has sabotaged the trial of 2 men charged with spying on behalf of an enemy of this country in Parliament. And we are having to call in favours to get him off the hook. It is disgusting, it is despicable, it is unpatriotic to allow yourself as national security advisor to be prioritised above the interests of this country. And that is what has happened. Behind the scenes, we won't find out, because these things are always kept secret, we won't find out, but in 40 years' time, when the records are released, I can tell you, guaranteed, 100%, take it to the bank, put your bets on now at any good high street bookies. We have requested that as a special favour through diplomatic channels. It is wrong because that should have gone to do something that would help secure British jobs, to make us more secure, to do everything else. It's wrong, it's appalling, and it shows that this government is not just a joke. I mean, it's actually working against this country's interests.
Absolutely an embarrassment that we've not played an important role. And again, it's one thing, you can play a role or not play a role, but when you're playing a role actually helping the enemy of our ally, the democratic nation state of Israel. That is quite something. Of course, we saw, and as I predicted last week on air, and as I wrote in my Sun column last Friday, these Palestinian marches, pro-Palestinian, would not stop. They're all now saying, well, you know, it was to end the genocide. There wasn't genocide. There isn't genocide. And the bombing has stopped. So move on. Oh, and the BBC reporting, you know, we want more aid in. BBC reporting breathlessly yesterday that aid trucks are going. What, you mean like they've been going in for months? I mean, again, they've been going in. You know, these we know what famine looks like. We've seen it on our television screens horribly in many, many places over the years. We can see it right now in countries not that far from Gaza, and yet, you know, apparently these perfectly healthy-looking people on the streets are we supposed to pretend are starving to death. It's just a load of abject lies and nonsense. But the pro-Palestinian marchers back out on the streets. They're free Palestine. Well, free it from what? I would say free it from Hamas. Once again, we have pro-Jewish protesters, people holding "We Stand with Britain's Jews" placards, being led away, being arrested, when those chanting "From the river to the sea," which means the annihilation of Israel, it's a Hamas slogan, they were fine, they were left. We had some guy, and we do need to make this guy famous, hasn't been identified publicly yet, as far as I know. It's a young man who, well, apparently he's an Oxford student. Oh, gosh, I hope it's Oxford Brookes and Oxford University. It's very embarrassing. But he's... sorry, apologies, someone's talking... I'm sorry, someone's talking to me in the air. I have no idea what they're saying. OK, we've got we've got the clip, apparently. So let's play a little clip of what this delightful young man was saying.
I don't want to yap for too long, but a chant that we've been workshopping in Oxford that maybe you guys want to join in. It goes, Gaza, Gaza, make us proud, put the Zios in the ground. Gaza, Gaza, make us proud, put the Zios in the ground. Gaza, Gaza, make us proud, put the Zios in the ground.
Right, so the clip we finally got on. Gaza, Gaza, make us proud, put the Zios in. Zios, short for Zionists, right? So people, well, it's short for Israelis, brackets. It means Jews. It does mean Jews, but it also means people like me, people like Sam, who support the right of Israel, the Jewish people, to have their own homeland. I mean, he's saying put them in the ground. That he's calling for people to be killed. That's what he's calling for. He's an Oxford student, apparently, on the streets of London, openly calling for people with a microphone, for people to be killed because of their nationality, their race, their religion, or their political beliefs. Sam, forgive me, I may be confused. I thought that was illegal in this country. I thought that was a criminal offence. And you and I are big free speech campaigners, but that doesn't extend to calling for people to be killed.
Yeah, well, a few things. Firstly, come on then, mate. I'm here. I'm a Zionist.
Yeah.
Anytime you want. Anytime
Absolutely.
you want.
I'll finish it at 1. Come on down.
Come and have a go, and we will see who ends up on the ground first. I won't put you in the ground, but I can assure you you'll end up on the ground. Secondly,
I'd like to point out that would be in self-defence, just for the lawyers listening.
Secondly, we have people arrested at marches in London, the capital city of this country, for holding totally peaceful signs that say "Stand with the hostages." We have people. There have been a multitude of people who have been arrested for just looking Jewish. Frankly, at times we saw a police officer
openly
Jewish, and yet that is not punished. There is something going deeply wrong with our policing. It is absolutely transparently two-tier. Everybody in this country can see it, and it's going to lead to a dark place because the public are losing massive amounts of trust in our institutions. But thirdly, if you remember nothing else about these so-called protesters, hate marchers, remember this. They started before Israel conducted the war in Gaza, and they're going to carry on afterwards.
They started while people were still being slaughtered and gang raped and burnt alive with their children on October the 7th.
They like it when Jews get killed.
They applied for the march permits. Yeah, And when you join that march, even if you're one of the good people, you just really are genuinely concerned about innocent civilians in Gaza. If you join those marches, you're joining the hate mongers. Organise your own marches to sort of campaign for peace, campaign against Hamas. You'd be doing them more good, you really would. Let's also talk about the China spy case. We touched on it in relation to Jonathan Powell. Kemi Badenoch is demanding the Prime Minister addresses what she calls the unanswered China spy case questions. Again, we've got claim and counterclaim. It does seem to be very, very clear. Anyone who knows anything at all about this case is saying the Prime Minister's advisor, the National Security Advisor, Jonathan Powell, that name again, or someone else somehow got involved. We're told not with the substance of the issue. We're told by Bridget Phillipson, the Education Secretary. By the way, love, stop doing the Sunday round. You're an abject disaster every time you go on air. You really are not up to the job. But basically was involved in the decision to basically have to drop this spy case. And it's very, very clear. The Prime Minister is blaming the CPS. Bridget Phillipson blaming the CPS. The Crown Prosecution Service, it's not, they did all the last government. They didn't have the evidence that China was an enemy state. You can't charge someone, by the way, the two men who alleged do deny any guilt, that you can't allege someone as spying for an enemy state if they've not been designated an enemy state. The former Director of Public Prosecutions, the current Director of Public Prosecutions, head of MI6, former security ministers like Tom Tugendhat, open statements in Parliament are making it really clear that the last government, at the time of this alleged spying, absolutely regarded and spoke about in terms of China as an enemy hostile state. It's an abject nonsense. There's been political interference without a shadow of a doubt in this trial, and the reason behind it is what we need to know. Is it because, as is claimed today, that we have basically got a government that is totally beholden to China, huge amounts of debt? Has there been a deal done that £1 billion in debt, or £1 billion in something that a Chinese steel company wants to claim from the government over losses, that they will drop that on behalf of the Chinese government in return for approval for the Chinese embassy, which would be within my eye line here from this office? What is going on? Because it does seem to me that not only has Keir Starmer sold Israel down the river, he's selling Britain down the river right now.
Yeah. Everybody in the country, everybody with a nose, with eyes, with ears, can smell a great big rat here. The CPS does not just drop cases randomly. We know, because it's been reported so comprehensively that I can only assume half of Labour's ministers are actively briefing against the government on this, that there was a dossier compiled by the security services on the threat China poses to us. And they were utterly convinced that if you showed that to a jury, any jury in this land would conclude China is an enemy of ours. And of course they are. I mean, for starters, we know, not even just with these individuals, but with other cases, they're spying on our parliament, they're harassing our naval vessels, they're hacking our networks. Countries that do that are foes, not friends. But this government, China, you've got to remember, is a bit like a great geopolitical boa constrictor. Yeah. It has slithered its way up into our space as a much bigger adversary, and now having got in here, it is slowly tightening and tightening and tightening in the hopes of strangling us off. That's what it did last week when it clamped down on exports of rare earth metals that we're massively dependent on them for. And rather than fight back, rather than trying to peel them off from tail to head, this government is going limp like a pathetic little rat in the jungle, and it's going to kill them. It's going to kill us, because China, let me assure you, is the biggest geopolitical threat we have faced, not just in the last century, but ever. This is massively bigger than the Soviet Union. And yet our government seems to be in this delulu, as the kids say, cuckoo land, in which it thinks it can get some investment off them.
Cameron and Osborne.
Yep.
As for numerous leaders of our country, we have a problem. I mean, we have a serious problem with our elites are selling us all down the river. Yep. We really, really do need to get to grips with it. So much more to talk about. We want to take Trump's speech to the Knesset in the Israeli Parliament when he does get up and speak. Just amazing jubilation scenes across Israel, roads being lined with people, those Israeli flags, those yellow ribbons, and just held aloft, as we have seen with the arrival of 20 living Israeli hostages, the final living hostages in Gaza, held by Hamas. They have been released back into the hands of the Israelis, many of them now, the first 7 already with their families who've not seen them for 2 years. 2 of the hostages, by the way, are identical twins, 2 men held captive separately who've been reunited for the first time. I'd love to hear your thoughts, love to hear your reaction, particularly the vital role that Britain played. What vital role did we play in helping our main ally in the Middle East get back their hostages stolen by a murderous terrorist group? Oh yeah, we rewarded that murderous terrorist group with the thing they most want: recognition of a Palestinian state. Well done, Keir Starmer. We're really, really proud. But give us a call. Let us have your say. 0344 499 1000 is the number. This is Talk.
So nobody told you before you got on the bus you can't wear a football shirt to drive the bus? When you got back to the depot, was that when they fired you or what?
On Monday morning, they sent an email over, my agency did.
Right.
They sent an email saying regarding the events on Saturday the 4th of October,
right,
we'll be dismissing you due to a uniform policy. The video has circulated all over social media.
So, what, a few million people have seen this now?
I didn't think it would go so big, but it's quite a surreal experience, I suppose.
Yeah, absolutely right.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Talk, the Home and Common Sense. 10:27 is the time. Let's get straight to your calls coming in thick and fast about that peace deal. The signing's happening later. Israeli hostages, 20, the last remaining 20 live hostages held by Hamas have been released. 7 already with their families, the others already with the IDF. It's an extraordinary day. I think it's one that many of us feared would never come. I've got my yellow ribbon on today. I'm wearing the colours of the Israeli flag because I have to say, we stand with you, Israel. Well, the sane, the moral, the not completely and utterly ignorant and immoral Brits, we stand with you on this amazing day, as we know you would stand with us as fellow democratic allies. But let's hear your thoughts. 0344 499 1000 is the number. James is on the line. He's in London. Hello, James. What do you want to say?
Hiya, Julia. I'd just like to echo what you just said, because any sane person in Britain would be echoing what you've just said. But what I've rang up for is Donald Trump has now shown the world for the irrelevancy of the United Nations. The United Nations, since the 1990s, I worked with these idiots in Bosnia. They have an abstract failure in Bosnia, abstract failure in Rwanda, abstract failure in Haiti, abstract failure in the Central African Republic, abstract failure everywhere they have actually been. Since the 1990s, you are irrelevant. You are politicians who are just acting, laughers, propagandists. You are an absolute failure. And this man in the Knesset has now proved your irrelevancy for the world to see.
Absolutely. I mean, again, the UN is just, again, it's a talking shop. That's what it was supposed to be. But, when people say, well, any war, a war is illegal because China and Russia and the Security Council don't agree with it, when they pass more motions about Israel, condemning Israel, than about any of the savage murderers, dictators and tyrants who rule many of the other countries, who put those other countries, the African countries, the South American countries, the Caribbean nations, they put them on the payroll to sign up to any of these motions. It's just a joke. I mean, what we really need is a sort of go back to a League of Nations, but a League of Democratic Nations. And we just have an organisation. We can play along with the UN as well, but we have an organisation that is the only. You have to be a member. You have to be a democracy. Otherwise, we're not taking you seriously.
Absolutely right, Julia. The United Nations is. We have committees run by monstrous beasts of countries like Iran and Saudi Arabia, lecturing us on human rights. And all we've got is propagandists within the United Nations. To me, they are nothing more than a money laundering NGO. And we need to be rid of them.
Totally with you. Absolutely with you. 100%. Thank you very much indeed. 10:30 is the time. Let's go. This is a Monday morning treat for you. Georgina's on the line in London. Georgina, very happy Monday morning to you. I'm sure you're as pleased as the rest of us. What do you want to say about this peace deal and indeed the hostages being released?
Oh, my goodness, Julia, I'm ecstatic. I had surgery last week. I've had bone grafts in my jaw. So my speech is not as clear. But even though I've been told not to speak, I had to today.
Nothing's going to stop you speaking.
Nothing's going to stop me. I'm so happy. It's nigh on remarkable what Donald Trump has achieved with this peace deal, Julia. And I'm sorry to say that Keir Starmer has had no positive input regards to the peace deal being reached. In fact, Starmer and Lamy's recognition of a state of Palestine could have sabotaged the whole peace deal process. I can't for the life of me understand why Starmer has travelled to Egypt. I can only surmise he wants to ride on the coattails of a really powerful leader and probably photobomb at the media conferences. I don't know how Starmer could be tolerated by either Trump or Netanyahu after Starmer has made it so clear that he's more pro-Palestinian than even the Arab states. The only thing Starmer has done is to give Hamas hope and indeed encouragement that terrorism does pay.
Yep.
And we can now only hope and pray that they don't try again. With Starmer and Lamy, the lights are on, my darling, but nobody's home. They have no moral compass, and they are definitely on the left side of even the Arab states. This is absolutely monstrous.
Absolutely.
If nothing else, this shows the difference between a strong, take-no-nonsense leader and the weakling that the United Kingdom has to endure. I'm heartily ashamed of both Starmer and Lamy, Julia, for the governance in this matter, and Starmer's presence was neither warranted, and I'm sure not welcomed at this most historic event. But I've got to say, I'm so happy. I've got my Israeli flag on my windowsill for all to see, and I too, my darling, am wearing my yellow ribbon.
Absolutely. Georgina, listen, I hope you recover soon. I know nothing would ever stop you talking and saying what you want to say and speaking for the nation. Georgina, thank you very much. 10:33 is the time. We're going to take a quick break. Up next, we are going to be talking to the Henry Jackson Society's Dr. Alan Mendoza about this day and what role did Britain play in helping to release the hostages and bringing about peace. Not that, by the way, I'm particularly optimistic that the other points of this 20-point plan are going to play out quite as many of the true believers think they will, because we are still dealing with a murderous terrorist organisation. Not entirely sure we are necessarily going to get exactly what we hope for. This is Talk. We are the home of common sense.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Talk, the Home of Common Sense with me, Julia Hartley-Brewer. Thank you very much indeed for your company. Sam Armstrong's commentators joining us as well. We're going to get lots more of your messages, lots more of your calls, lots more top guests throughout the show. And, of course, we will take Donald Trump speaking to the Israeli Parliament, the Knesset, as soon as he does actually take to the podium to give his speech. As he, well, we see welcome home 20 Israeli live hostages, another 28 due to be released today as part of the terms of the Trump's 20-point plan. We're told that some of the bodies simply will not be found today, but the 20 remaining living hostages are back in safe hands. Let's talk about this with Dr. Alan Mendoza, Executive Director of the Henry Jackson Society, an organisation who are campaigning basically against extremism. Alan, thank you very much for joining us. It is indeed a wonderful day, isn't it?
Yes, it is, Julia. Finally, a wonderful day. For so long, we have had many non-wonderful days, and there's actually a day to be grateful for and to actually celebrate.
Well, indeed. I mean, I'm just absolutely thrilled, having spoken to so many hostages, families, and sadly also those who've lost loved ones, the campaigning they've been doing. How significant is, first of all, Donald Trump's role in this? How significant is it as him personally, the role that he has played to negotiate to get to this point where this deal has taken place today? Whatever happens in the future, that this has happened today.
Well, it's all down to Trump. There's no doubt that he was the magic ingredient that got all the sides, and when I say all the sides, it's not merely Israel and Hamas, but many other sides that had to be brought in, such as the supporters of Hamas and others like that, to get to this point where finally the one thing that we always knew would end the conflict in sort of a military sense, i.e. the return of the hostages, has happened. So, you're right to say we don't know quite how it's going to unfold from here, but for this particular part, he said from day one, the hostages are all coming back. All of them are coming back, and he's got them back. And it was he and his administration who've made the difference. And we know that certainly in Hamas and all previous negotiations, drip, 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 you get a few, and then we get a few hundred, of our prisoners, but they call them hostages. They're not hostages, there are detainees, as there are in all wars, and there are people who've been convicted of the most horrific terrorist and murderous attacks, and rape even. And there we are, Hamas cheering at getting their criminals back, which is, quite in contrast to what's going on in Hostages Square in Tel Aviv right now. In terms of the ability to bang heads together, what was it? Because we're told, Netanyahu, wouldn't do the deal. This deal's been on the table all along. That's simply not true, is it? Well, I haven't been sitting in on those negotiations, so I can't say what hasn't happened. What I can say is that was there a deal for all the hostages to come back that Netanyahu has refused? Not that anyone in Israel has ever said. So it would seem extraordinary, given that's the one thing the Israelis have demanded from day one. It was never on the table because, as you pointed out, the drip drip was what Hamas needed to keep the leverage that they had from the hostages, i.e. stopping Israel from utterly annihilating them militarily. And secondly, of course, it bought them valuable time to rearm and to regenerate during the conflict. So every time there was a ceasefire pause, it gave Hamas the opportunity to do something. So it's always been in Hamas's interest not to return all the hostages. They've finally been forced into it. And people who say this is Netanyahu being forced into a deal, it's nonsense. The people who have most to lose by this are Hamas. Hamas lose their leverage, and Hamas, in theory at least, are about to lose control of Gaza.
Well, indeed, again, in theory at least. Before we come to that, let's also talk about Keir Starmer. Bridget Phillipson, his Education Secretary, one of the two, probably likely losing candidate for the deputy leadership of the Labour Party, she claimed that the UK, that Keir Starmer had played a vital role. That's why it was a vital role in this deal. This has been poo-pooed rather blatantly and openly and publicly by the US ambassador to Israel, Mike Huckabee, saying that this was delusional. And then we saw a message from the Donald Trump's chief negotiator, Steve Witkoff, basically sort of praising Jonathan Powell, his national security advisor, for his key role. But, it is delusional to claim we played anything close to a vital role in this deal.
Well, we didn't play a vital role. The Americans did that. They were the difference. Had it been without the Americans, whatever Jonathan Powell was doing would have achieved zero success. And the reason for that, of course, is that Britain was no longer seen as A, a power in the Middle East, and B, relevant, because it had made itself quite clearly irrelevant by things like declaring unilateral Palestinian state when one doesn't exist. So once you take sides like that, you lose your relevance, basically. It's only when you maintain that ability to be an honest broker between the sides, as the US has done, that you can actually achieve something. something. So whatever the UK has done at the margins, it's very much at the margins, and it does not enable us to, take any credit, apart from, of course, from no doubt what the Americans would love us now to do, which is to pay for it all and to put our troops on the ground. It'll be very interesting to see whether Sakir, who's so keen to take credit for this, will now go and do what the Americans might want him to do on this regard, because I think that'd be a terrible move for Britain for that to be the case.
Yeah, well, indeed. And this is it. It's nice to be hopeful, and I have to say, for me, getting those hostages back, absolutely vital. But for me, the chances that Hamas, and they've made it very clear with various other jihadist organisations, along with them saying a statement yesterday, we're not willing to sort of give up power. Everything is predicated on Hamas cannot have a role in the running of any future Palestinian state or parts, or Gaza. Not going to happen, according to the Israelis. But and indeed, according to Trump and this peace deal, which Hamas supposedly have accepted, because they haven't. They've agreed to this phase one and not the rest of it. The reality is that they're not going to walk away. We've already seen executions, dozens of people executed in, basically fighting between the different clans, different organisations within Gaza. Some of it, filmed and out on social media. Even the BBC has noticed it, for goodness sake, Alan, so it must be real. Do you hold out any hope that we are going to see civilians in Gaza living, anything close to a normal life? Bearing in mind they are returning to their homes, but there's not much of their homes left in the rubble at the end of this war.
Well, I think it all comes down again to Donald Trump. What does he want? What is he prepared to achieve, and who is he prepared to pressure in order to guarantee this? Hamas don't operate on their own. They've been supported for a long time by elements within Qatar, elements within Turkey. So it seems to me that there is an obvious way to make Hamas comply by applying pressure to those people, as has obviously been done already to get them to this point, in order to get that deal beyond phase one. If he does exert that pressure, then there's every possibility they will have to comply. If he chooses to back off, then the scenario you've sketched out is likely to be the future of Gaza. And we will not know, of course, who ends up winning that, because you're right to point out that there are local clans, militias who don't want to obey Hamas, who want to sort of strike out their own fiefdoms, who would like to take charge right now. So there could be a very severe civil war, which is why it's important that Hamas is indeed pressured to leave and that a structured replacement is set up so that we know who will actually govern Gaza.
Yeah. And meanwhile, of course, this is all still playing out on our streets here in Britain. Once again on Saturday, after all that's happened, we had more, free Palestine marches, from the river to the sea, Hamas slogans chanted on our streets. And once again, we had the police basically arresting the wrong people. Amazingly, we played a little clip earlier on to some student, apparently at Oxford, of the shame that it brings on my former university, basically talking about, burying Zios in the ground. So, basically killing people for having an opposite view from him. I'm assuming he includes me. And again, happy to debate with him on this. No arrest for him that we're aware of, although we are very much hoping we can make him famous and ensure that he does get his collar felt, because my beef and freedom of speech doesn't extend to people making death threats against people. But we also saw once again, people who were just holding up signs saying, "I stand with Britain's Jews," being arrested by police when people are making the most outrageous shouting violent slogans, holding anti-Semitic placards, and the police do nothing. And this has gone our streets yet again. What do you make of that?
Well, two-tier Britain in action, Julia. Once again, terror among the police, fear about, actually dealing with these people.
Yeah.
Who, let's be frank, let's exercise our freedom of speech. They are the scum of the earth.
Yep.
These are the lowest of the low, the very filth of our society that comes out, crawls out of the drains at a time when a ceasefire is there.
Yeah.
When they've claimed, they've lied about a genocide for all this time. They don't want the genocide to stop, it seems. That's the lunacy of this thing. They are warped, they are twisted, they are frankly evil, Julia. And it's tragic that the law enforcement forces in this country are terrified of such a rabble. They should be in there, they should be smashing heads, they should be locking these people up who are breaking the law quite brazenly in front of us. And that is not happening, and that tells you all you need to know about where this government stands on the law and order question and what is right and what is wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, we saw, even on a very different note, but we saw at the weekend as well a march in Tower Hamlets, a fun run in Tower Hamlets, organised by East London Mosque, which was for, a fun run for all the community, except that women were only allowed, or girls were only allowed to take part if they were under the age of 12, but not above the age of 12. So women, so it was all men and boys and a few girls who ran along. And apparently this is just how we're going to live our lives now in this country.
Well, this is an example, isn't it, of totally failed integration. So we've seen this over the last 20 years, time and time again. It's getting worse rather than better. And again, the government won't even call out the problem, let alone do anything about it. And until we have leaders who are willing to call it out and say this is unacceptable in a democratic Britain in 2025, then we are going to have a repeat of all the problems that we've seen, the incitement, the hatred, the chaos, and indeed the extremism. And that will lead this country only one way, and that way is into chaos and disaster.
Well, indeed. Dr. Ellen Mendoza, Executive Director of the Henry Jackson Society, thank you for that. Quick response to that from Sam Armstrong.
Yeah, apart from when politicians try and have a conversation about integration, they are cut down, slapped down. Robert Jenrick is just spending his yet another day with op-eds in newspapers saying how awful he was for bringing up the fact that he went to one of the least integrated parts of this country, and he saw the consequences. He described them in plain speaking terms, and our media says actually the problem isn't the fact that we have places in this country that are like slums. The problem is that you're talking about them.
Yeah, don't never say the facts. They don't like the facts. Here's a fact: late breaking news. Hamas, who we trust so much, Hamas has confirmed that the first of 38 buses carrying Palestinian prisoners from Israeli prisons has arrived in Gaza. Of course, to absolute jubilation, because they want their rapists, murderers and terrorists back. Enjoy. 10:48 is the time. Up next, we're going to talk about what is going on with this China spy case. Why on earth is everyone pointing the finger at Downing Street, in particular to the Prime Minister's own national security advisor, accusing him of collapsing a case against two alleged British spies for China? That's up next. This is Talk.
There will definitely be an urgent question. We know that the Commons Speaker as well, who will be the one who will grant the urgent question, was not particularly happy about what happened. And when it was first reported that the case had collapsed, he said that the government needed to answer lots of questions. And at the time, we didn't even know that the CBS had asked for that material. You know, this was like a month or so ago. And the Commons Speaker was not happy. So we'll definitely see some action in Parliament, and we'll see how the government does.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning, welcome back to the show. 10:51 is the time. Well, we've been focusing a lot on Israel and those release of hostages. We've got the President of the United States, Donald Trump, in Israel, about to speak at the Israeli Parliament, the Knesset. When we get that, we'll bring it to you live, I promise. Right now, though, let's talk about what on earth is going on back home and why did we see the collapse of that Chinese spy trial, and why is everyone pointing the finger at number 10 for doing it? Let's talk to Professor Anthony Cleese. He's a security intelligence expert and joins us once again to try and make, well, head nor tail of this story. Good morning to you, Anthony.
Good morning, Julia.
We spoke with you about this last week, but more developments over the weekend in terms of fingers being pointed at the current government and particularly the Prime Minister's National Security Advisor, Jonathan Powell, for the collapse of this Chinese spy trial. Give us a little bit of background and what is the allegation now?
Okay. I mean, the whole thing is entirely preposterous. And, you know, I'm somebody that has a lot of respect for Sir Keir Starmer. I'd vote for him, but he's our elected Prime Minister and he's a senior lawyer. Yeah. And yet I've never seen such a pig's ear being made of a totally straightforward thing. So when the offences, alleged offences, were committed, we didn't have the July 2023 National Security Act passed by the previous Conservative government, which kind of slightly fiddled around with the definitions. We had basically the 1911 Official Secrets Act, which is a very broad act, and I can even read to you what it says. It says that anybody who makes any sketch, plan or model or note which is calculated or might be or is intended to be directly or indirectly useful to an enemy is spy, traitor, you choose the word. It's entirely clear. It's about the intention of the person passing on the information. It's not about the intention of the enemy or the potential enemy.
But the point is that the Prime Minister, a former Director of Public Prosecutions, he's now in sort of clashing with the current Director of Public Prosecutions and indeed another former one, pointing out, he's saying, no, the trial collapsed, he said, because we, you know, at the time China wasn't designated a hostile or enemy state.
Doesn't have to be.
That's not true, is it?
Well, you know, you could say, if you want to find out if China is a hostile power or not, let the trial go ahead. That's what the trial was meant to show, in part. But you do not have to have a designated enemy. It's not the enemy, it's an enemy, but it's about the intention of the person passing on the information. And the first conviction against a German spy in 1913 was secured a year before we went to war with Germany during the Cold War. Countless people convicted under the Official Secrets Act for spying for the Soviet Union. We weren't at war with the Soviet Union. So the government is talking total nonsense.
I mean, we're dancing on the head of a pin on this, aren't we? Well, Kemi Badenoch, the Tory leader, she has demanded that Prime Minister addresses unanswered questions related to this case, but in particular wants him to address them in Parliament. Now, we've had lots of little statements. And again, the crucial thing is if you are addressing Parliament, you are required to be telling the truth. I can see some rinky-dink little lawyer speak that he'll able to have. And we've had Richard Phillipson, the Education Secretary, on air yesterday talking about, you know, no, Jonathan Powell had no role in any of this. No role in the substance of this, she said. And again, leaving the way open. But what do you suspect actually happened?
Well, what I suspect actually happened was that Jonathan Powell, and a lot of credit is due to him for, you know, the work that he's done, Northern Ireland, now the Middle East, as President Trump and Steve Witkoff have said. Undoubtedly, he would have been asked for a view as to whether we thought the Chinese would like being on the receiving end of an espionage trial. And from all we know about Jonathan Powell, he's likely to have said, well, I don't think President Xi would be very happy about it. But that actually is neither here nor there. This is about national security. And if I may add one other thing, we're also seeing this in connection with the Chinese plan to build a super embassy in Royal Mint Court. Now, there's something very odd and very fishy about that too. Not just because it would be the largest Chinese embassy anywhere in Europe. I mean, it's an absolutely massive building, but because the Chinese have already bought the building in 2018 for £255 million. Now, that is completely contrary to the Vienna Convention of 1961, which regulates how embassies are doshed out by the receiving state. No foreign power, including the United States, owns their embassy. America owns the leasehold on the embassy, but doesn't own the embassy.
Yeah.
But China owns the embassy.
And the crucial thing, it's right near Tower Bridge. It's going to be built over cables that are crucial for the city. Tower Hamlets Local Council said no. And there are now lots of reports over the weekend that actually this was basically they basically reapplied for planning with a nod and a wink from the government that it will get approval, even though everybody's got a clue about security for this country, financial, military, diplomatic, has said this is insane, it mustn't go ahead.
It is insane. It mustn't go ahead. China should not be allowed to buy its embassy in the UK. It should not be allowed to build a super embassy.
Okay.
Because we know what the Chinese do.
Well, indeed.
And the trial would demonstrate to everybody whether or not people like me and the chairman of the Joint Intelligence Committee, for goodness sake, who said in 2023, China's spying is worldwide. There is an undoubted threat. Let the trial go ahead, then we'll find out.
Absolutely. I must remember the two men who have been accused of spying have both denied that. But again, if the trial has collapsed from political interference, we have a right to know. And again, everything being blamed on Jonathan Powell. But at the end of the day, we keep having the Prime Minister having his aides getting up to things they shouldn't be getting up to, and then they leave, and then he carries on. And there comes a point when maybe we should just, make a judgment about Keir Starmer based on the company he keeps and the people he hires. Professor Anthony Gee, security and intelligence expert, thank you very much indeed. 10:58 is the time. President Trump has arrived in the Knesset in the Israeli parliament. We've got various other people speaking beforehand. I think he's going to be speaking any moment. We will take that live. We'll drop the news. But until he does speak, Sam Armstrong is still with me. I mean, this China spy story, this may turn out to be, well, some people are predicting this could be the end of Keir Starmer.
Well, and absolutely every reason it should be. Can you imagine if the shoe was on the other foot? It was a Conservative Prime Minister that interfered with independent lawyers, something Keir Starmer is always very keen to say should never occur, interfered to stop a trial on the basis of they thought financial or trade benefits. He would have been the first to call for them to go. And this is just yet another example with this Prime Minister of just brazen, blatant hypocrisy every single time. He said one thing when he was in opposition, he's now in there, and he's just as bad as any of the others were.
Here's the thing, I'm not a fan of Keir Starmer. Would I have thought that he was a traitor to his country? No, I just think he's a bit hopeless and silly, lily-livered, lefty North London lawyer. But that's not the same as thinking he's a traitor. I mean, of course, he was traitorous during the years post-Brexit, post-Brexit referendum, trying to undermine Britain's negotiating position. No doubts all about that. But, there's a difference between, I don't really want Brexit to happen, and actually selling a country down the river for our security to China, which is blatantly a hostile enemy state. And this is the thing. I sort of almost can't get my head around them doing it, but I'm just as worried about, George Osborne when he was Chancellor, and David Cameron. They were just absolutely...
And Boris.
And Boris Johnson taking any Chinese money. No, they're not putting it into their back pockets, but they don't have benefit to some of the jobs they get later. Our universities sold down the river. So much of the capital city of this country sold to the Chinese. So many businesses. We're about to let them have us... I mean, they've got a massive input into our energy, into so many different areas. This is dangerous. This is a country we may well be at war with in the next 10 years. This is like doing deals and doing favours for Nazi Germany at this point. I'm not making silly comparisons. I'm saying, it's pretty inevitable there will be a clash of these two Western civilization and China. There's not a single person who's got a clue what's going on in the world who doesn't think that's going to happen. Why on earth would we be, quite literally, for want of a better expression, kowtowing to the Chinese on this? And that is the thing that really worries me. Why would they do that? Why are they doing that?
Well, I think the Brexit comparison is interesting because Keir Starmer is always someone who has placed his own fringe, bizarre, in my view, misguided political ideals above the interests of our country. He was so prepared to stop, so determined to stop Brexit that he was prepared to go and undermine the UK's position in getting a deal with the foreign government. And you look at the Indian Ocean, the Chagos Island deal, and you just think that's the equivalent in the 1930s to handing over the Shetland Islands equivalent to the Nazis. I mean,
it's just weird.
We will come to rue the day that
I think
that
the
man
Channel
was
Islands,
ever
actually.
elected. Yeah.
I mean, this is the thing. So just in case you've just tuned in, it's just 1 minute past 11. We've dropped the news because we were expecting Donald Trump to be speaking by now in the Israeli parliament, the Knesset. We've had standing ovations for the Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, also for the chiefs of the military as well, of course, and also actually for Steve Witkoff, interestingly, as well. And actually even for Jared Kushner, and, he's been a sort of Middle East peace envoy. It's almost like having him in the room. I have to say, there's uncanny resemblance of you, Mr. Sam Armstrong, if you don't mind me saying.
Since I've lost the weight.
We are expecting Donald Trump to be speaking any moment now. As soon as he does, I promise you won't miss a single word. I think this is very, very significant. The worry, of course, is, Sam, and this is the reality, we can all be very hopeful. And yes, it's extraordinary that Hamas has agreed to hand over the hostages, the live hostages and the hostages' bodies, before anything else happens. OK, ceasefire. Israel have gone back. They're still holding a large part of the Gaza land. But to hand over those hostages in one go, when that was kind of their bargaining chip. Yeah. And it was the thing that justified, in my view, any action by Netanyahu and the Israeli forces, not that they did any action. We have seen the extraordinary footage of people returning to what were their homes across Gaza, and it is devastation. I mean, devastation. Now, look, I was on the Gaza border a few weeks ago. There are 100%. There are lots of buildings still standing. It's nonsense. So where there has been fighting, where, for instance, the Hamas were booby trapping buildings, and IDF had no choice but to basically blow the whole building up. By the way, long after people had left the country. If you look at that level of devastation, you look at footage of Dresden during the Second World War, Mosul more recently, you look at Damascus, the Syrian war. This is what a war landscape looks like. It's devastating. It's awful. It's why you shouldn't start wars, which is what Israel didn't do, what Hamas did do. I mean, I'm slightly changing the word, but, frolicked around and found out is basically the message here. But how do they rebuild? Because you are going to, all the nonsense and the false claims of famine and genocide, absolute nonsense. Given that level of devastation, the fact that we're only looking at less than 40,000 civilians, even on Hamas's own figures, dying through that devastation over 2 years, is a testament. I mean, that sort of number have died in a day in previous wars, for goodness sake. That tells you how careful the IDF has been, but that doesn't mean you're not going to get innocent loss of life. How difficult will it be to rebuild Gaza? They still haven't dismantled the tunnels. They still haven't got rid of Hamas. How are they going to do it?
Well, with Hamas in place, impossible. This is an organisation which, of course, is not only the going around routinely killing Gazan civilians.
As we've seen on camera in the last 24 hours.
Anyone that poses a political challenge to it, it has been involved in the massive, enormous industrial-scale corruption and stealing of every penny of aid that goes into Gaza. There is a reason when you see footage of the wives of Hamas leaders and fighters and diplomats, they're all carrying designer handbags.
Yes.
They're not all poor in Gaza.
Even when they were going through the tunnels to escape, yes.
They made sure they brought their designer labels with them. Right? These are people that have got rich off the Gazan people. They've got rich off causing conflicts, fighting wars and all the rest of it.
And the taxes of our money that's gone to the UN and other organisations then being passed on to them.
We buy terrorists' wives handbags.
Yeah.
We do, I'm sorry.
We also buy the terrorist weapons.
We buy them Mercedes cars.
Yeah.
They're driving around, they're doing very well. However, I'm quite optimistic because having given up the hostages, Hamas doesn't have many cards left to play. So if they do try and play silly games, there will be nothing to stop Israel now prosecuting the kind of war that many people would have liked them to fight in the first place. So Hamas...
Well, because that's the thing, because the IDF didn't go into certain places in Gaza City, for instance, because that was where they believed, even certain areas in Gaza City, that's where they believed that the Hamas hostages were, and they did not want any more of their people to die as a result of their own bombing.
The hostages were Hamas's secret weapon during this war.
Open weapon.
Now that that's gone, hopefully, the Palestinian Authority, which is also a corrupt organisation, by the way, they can come in. I don't want to inflict on the Gazan people one suggestion, which was Tony Blair to come and rule the place. They may be bad, but they're not that bad. But look, there is going to be massive amounts of aid. And look, by the way, to all these protesters that have spent their entire time carping on and bleating on about we must do this, we must do that. Right, well, now reach into your own pocket, send some money. If you care about the Palestinian people, I'm sure we can find the link. You can donate the money to them. Go and get on with it. I get fed up with people saying, we need to do this, we need to do that. Well, if you need to do it, reach into your pocket and do it.
But absolutely, and again, can you guarantee the money doesn't go to the men with the guns? At the end of the day, it is power, it is guns, it is the ability and the willingness to be brutal that will be deciding who runs Gaza. We are expecting we really are still expecting the US president to be speaking.
He's getting a lot of applause.
He is getting a lot of applause, but there's a lot of applause for a lot of other key people who've played key roles. I mean, there've been amazing footage today of those Israeli live hostages being released. Bearing in mind today, there will also be terrible sadness of the families who are going to get back their dead children, their dead husbands, their dead sons, and
some of whom have held out hope until today, and they will have learned today, amongst all of this joy, they will have learned that their plight is to face grief, and how awful for them.
Yeah, it is absolutely extraordinary, and I find it amazing that with the announcement of this deal and certainly the agreement of Phase 1 last week, that how many of the people who claim that they care desperately about Gazan civilians, how they wanted a ceasefire, the end of the genocide that isn't happening, they get the aid in, so none of that could happen without the release of these hostages, and they claim that these poor civilians, they haven't had an election for 20 years. It's not their fault Hamas are in charge. Well, OK, so you want Hamas gone too, right? So here's a deal that delivers all of that. No one required to leave. No, if you do leave, you can come back again. Loads in aid, rebuild. Not putting the Israelis in charge, Israeli forces outside, but a buffer zone to make sure both the Israelis and the Gazans are safe from each other. I mean, what is not to like? If you claim to care about the people of Gaza, the innocent civilians, the babies you care so much about, you cannot be opposed to this peace. Oh, no, they say. No, we want a different kind of peace, a different kind of ceasefire, a different kind of aid coming in. This is the thing. They'll never be happy. Now it's free Palestine, and it's something else entirely. And the goalposts have moved. They will never be happy.
These people tell you exactly what they want. They want Palestine from the river to the sea. That means all of the Jews gone. They don't care. Yeah. They don't care where. They could be dead. They could be deported. These people are actively campaigning on the streets for what? A genocide. They wish to remove the Jewish people from their homeland on the basis of their race. The irony is, the only people calling for a genocide, Hamas and their supporters.
Indeed. What do you make of the two-tier police we saw once again over the last week, but particularly at the weekend, when we had these more outrageous scenes of these marchers, again, claiming they want peace. Well, there's a ceasefire. You've got your ceasefire. Why are you calling for a ceasefire? You've already got one. And you've got these marchers and shouting again these anti-Semitic slogans, these slogans about death to Israel, death threats, open death threats, are putting Zios in the ground, i.e., you and me, because we support the right of Israel to exist. That means they want us dead. I'd rather like the police to arrest people who call for that publicly, dance and cheer for it, especially if they're a student at my former university, apparently. Just so you know, just before you answer, actually, just say... Donald Trump is about to speak. He has been introduced. He's been in the Knesset now, I think, for about 15 minutes. He was given a 4-minute standing ovation already. Each member of the Trump administration watching on in the Knesset has had their name read aloud. More standing ovations for them. And the US president has been introduced as the best friend Israel has ever had in the White House. He's alongside Israeli President Isaac Herzog and also the Speaker of the House, Amir Ohana. And that is going on. We're going to be hearing from Donald Trump. I have to think, having seen Donald Trump in action over a number of years, Sam, my guess is Donald Trump, although he's getting a lot of love in the room, will get bored soon and will want to get on and give his speech. And it is interesting, Israel, we've got on the beach in Tel Aviv, we've got, people have made signs thanking him. Yeah. Apparently every high-rise building has got signs. Yeah. Cheers in Hostages Square. He is getting a lot of love in Israel from people who know how crucial a role. I wonder if Keir Starmer went to visit, I wonder what reaction he'd get.
Who? Sorry, who?
Let me look him up. Keir Starmer. Who? Where is he? What's he?
I don't think the people of Israel, I don't think people of Gaza would recognise Keir Starmer. The only people that recognise him are his mates, the Hamas. They're over there in Qatar, down in the tunnels, because he rewarded them. Why did he reward them? In order to suck up to voters that he fears are going to abandon him at the next election. Yeah. Look, Donald Trump, I'm sure, is enjoying his moment. He does like getting praised. I imagine this is going to
deserves it in this case.
I imagine this is going to be one of these days where he's going to speak largely off his auto cue. I feel a bit sorry for his speechwriter that spent all this time with his remarks.
So do I.
He is going to be taking his victory lap. But as actually,
he doesn't. There are lots of people who don't like this deal because it's Donald Trump.
Yeah, and by the way, he deserves a Nobel Peace Prize for this.
Totally.
Why he wasn't given it last week?
But it hadn't happened by last week in that sense. Could you try? I mean, not that Obama had to do anything to get his Nobel Peace. He'd been in power. Well, he'd been nominated within 6 weeks of taking office. He hadn't done a thing. He's responsible for more deaths, if you ask me, by
these organisations have been taken over by the left. It is basically impossible to win a prize as a right-wing president and guaranteed as a left-wing one. We know what is going on, but look, frankly, one Nobel Peace Prize isn't enough if this peace holds.
Yeah, that's the thing, does it? But I mean, coming back, because I've just got a sideline there talking about what's happening in the Knesset, but in terms of what's been happening on our streets, these people who protest, who got their kafirs on. Yeah. And they feel very strongly, apparently.
Terrorist scarves.
The terrorist scarves. They never seem to know many facts. I always think it's strange. It's like people who campaign on things like climate change, and you try and have a conversation with them based on not opinions, but should we just talk about a few of the facts and establish some facts? They tend to know very, very little. I mean, Greta Thunberg knows less about Gaza and Israel and the history of the Middle East than she knows about climate change. This is what happens when you bunk off every Friday. But there we are. But what do you make of the people on the streets continuing to be on the streets and the continuation of, no matter how many times we point it out, the two-tier policing on our streets?
Well, on the two-tier policing, I'm not surprised. As listeners will know, I work for the Free Speech Union when I'm not here, and time again, over the 4,500 cases we've seen, there is a massive, totemic, enormous, huge imbalance between the kinds of people who are hauled before the courts or visited by the police for frankly benign, anodyne comments on social media, and the extreme statements, acts of hate and violent imputations that are absolutely criminal. They meet that test of criminality anywhere in the world, which is calling for imminent lawless action. Yeah. And time again, they are ignored. And by the way, it wasn't just that little Muggins, little Tarquin that was shouting all of that stuff. And as I say to him, come and have a go. If you want to put Isaiah in the ground, I'll give you a chance to let me know where and when I'll be there. But it was an entire crowd, a mob, a horde, all of whom joined in shouting that back, because it's all call and response. They've all said it. And as far as I'm concerned, each and every one of them has called for imminent violence against people in this country. I will defend free speech, but that's way over the line. It's not the sort of speech that I or the organisation I work for defends. Each of them needs arresting and charging. And if they don't, and they won't. Yeah, it tells you everything you need to know about the police and their priorities today.
Do we think, I mean, I know coppers, got friends who are coppers, I talk to individual police officers, and do you think that they are going, yeah, I absolutely support the cause of the Palestinian people? I don't think they are that political. I think your average copper is as horrified by all this, but they've got their hands tied because you've got the sort of the DEI hires, you've got the senior figures in the police. You've got Met. I mean, Mark Rowley, I mean, better than Cressida Dick in the Met Police, but
it's a low bar.
It's exactly as you say, a low bar. And they're basically on instruction and there clearly is this issue where, look, we can arrest the odd person who's holding a sign saying I stand with Britain's Jews. Again, sorry, how on earth? Well, it's provocative. Yeah. It's why is it so impromptu? You think there's going to be violence? So you think that someone saying "I stand with Britain's Jews" will provoke somebody into violence? Isn't that the problem? I mean, I'm sorry. It's like the person who's provoked into violence in that scenario is the problem, not the person holding the sign. But crucially, they won't send in the police vans. They don't send in the heavy mob police. Now, there may be a very, very strong argument for policing in a more subdued way, but to get people. But they don't arrest people. They are not arresting people in those marches, and they're largely not being arrested after the fact either. They don't mind going in when it's a few retired librarians and vicars who are sitting on the grass outside, Parliament, saying the T-shirt on saying I heart Palestine action, which is a prescribed terrorist group. They'll do those people because they know it's safe to arrest them, but they won't do the people who are blatantly shouting for death to some of our fellow British citizens on the streets of this country. And that is intolerable. It's intolerable.
Yeah, and look, there's no doubt that the police leadership are a massive, the majority of this problem. But I do have a problem with individual police officers, PCs, sergeants and the like, all of whom, by the way, took an oath to uphold the laws of this country impartially. I do have a problem when they're going around and nicking these people either because they've been told to, or because they're cowardly, or because they just think it will cause less hassle that way. Every time that happens, those individuals, just like the sexists and the misogynists and the racists, they need kicking out of the police force too, because they've got no role in British policing. If you are arresting someone, nicking someone, exercising their free speech because it's convenient, I'm sorry, I don't want you wearing the uniform. I don't want you on the streets of London. We need better than that. This country's got a massive crime problem. We need to have really, really high standards for police officers. We probably need to pay them more, and then we need to expect them to go out and do the job properly. The standards we set for people working in public roles.
But also knowing the law, knowing the actual law. And by the way, we need to have a little bit of exercise in what Hamas slogans are and what they mean. So much more to talk about. We didn't go to a break or to the news. In fact, we're going to miss another break now. Lucky old you. You get more of me and Sam. But because we're waiting for Donald Trump. This is why we don't normally do live feeds for these very things, but I think it's such a significant speech. But I think Donald Trump's already looking a little bit bored. I'm not going to lie. In the Knesset, in the Israeli Parliament, big standing ovation from those in attendance. He's been very much praised. His team who were there with him as well, Steve Witkoff, his son-in-law Jared Kushner, and others, all being praised. Other senior figures, also Benjamin Netanyahu, the Israeli Prime Minister. I mean, let's he's agreed to this deal. For goodness' sake, he is. I mean, people always talk about. You hear on the BBC all the time. He's so unpopular in Israel. I'm telling you what, he still leads one of the most popular parties in Israel, and otherwise he wouldn't be in power, right? Here's the other key thing. If the Israeli people are united as almost one. It's a democracy. People are allowed to have different opinions in democracy and express them and not get shot. I know, weird concept. Maybe the Gazans could understand that at some point. But genuinely, if you've been to Israel, talked to so many different people, and you look at the polling, the Israeli people are, as possible as it's possible to be, united in they want the Israeli hostages back. They want peace. They don't want to be at war, and they want Hamas destroyed. Now, we've got one of those, second on the way, third of those, big question mark about that.
But just going back to Benjamin Netanyahu, we were told again and again by experts, foreign policy figures, diplomats, retired this, that, whoever, on the BBC, remember, these are the smart people, these are the people you've got to listen to, these are the only people that are worth trusting. We were told again and again, Benjamin Netanyahu will never allow a deal to be done. Why? Because, he's got this trial going on where he's facing charges and they can't do it when it's the war and it's his own interest, and he's just stoking the war in order to get re-elected. Right. Firstly, he's done the deal, right? He's done the deal. Secondly, Benjamin Netanyahu has never been as popular today. There hasn't been a poll done, but I can tell you, if you did it, he wouldn't be. Has never been as popular as he is today. He has achieved the objectives, we hope, of everything that the Israeli people wanted: to get the hostages back, to remove Hamas, to ensure that they are not rewarded for conducting an appalling act of terror that, just a reminder for those that are still slow, started all of this off in the first instance. Everything that is poisoned the mainstream debate in this country about what is going on here, everything that you were told was not true. It was baloney. It was balderdash. And it's shame on the journalists that allowed it to be told. Shame on them, because a lot of them knew better.
Oh, well, they do know better. I have to say, apparently, every time we speak, I mean, certainly, I don't know if you're getting your checks from Israel or not, but I'm being told constantly, it's the latest thing that I'm getting it started with 7,000 shekels, that you're getting the Israeli currency. Every time I post a tweet, apparently I'm getting, I mean, genuinely, I am absolutely rolling it now, if that is the case. But
as I said last week, I'm hoping for better things at the Christmas party this year.
Well, yes, exactly. You're on very dodgy ground here. Thing is, it alternates, because the little memes I get sent, which is just the classic sort of anti-Semitic stuff. It's basically, and it is blatant. You cannot possibly be speaking up for Israel, only democratic state in the Middle East, our ally, who've been a victim of a terrible atrocity. You cannot possibly be speaking up for them unless you're being paid to do so, because it must be evil and terrible otherwise. So 7,000 shekels, this is the thing that bothers me, because when I do send my invoice, obviously, what I love is me saying this, this lot, they won't even get it, it's sarcasm. No. When I do send my invoice, 7,000 shekels, right? Is it 7,000 shekels, or, as many are claiming, £7,000? Well, that would be great, but because 7,000 shekels is only worth £1,604, right? And it's only worth $2,138. So ideally, I'd be wanting it in dollars, wouldn't I? So shall I send my invoice in dollars? I mean, because this is what is being claimed.
Well, invoice in Bitcoin, maybe.
I mean, this is the thing, isn't it? This is the madness that we're getting. That anyone who says, well, let's face it, we debate facts, we talk about facts. For me, I support Israel. And I'm wearing my hostage, I'm wearing the colours of the Israeli flag right now. I support Israel because they've been the victim of a terrible, terrible atrocity, and we should be on their side. And their conduct of the totally justified war, some of the most totally justified war in history, has been to get their own people back held hostage. Hamas could have given them back any day of the week since October the 7th, 2023. There's some nonsense. There was a deal on the table on the 8th of October. What a load of abject nonsense. The Israeli forces have caused deaths in Hamas, in Gaza. Of course they have, but that's because Hamas started a war and basically often forbade people from leaving their buildings. When the IDF sent warnings, they literally send mobile phone messages. They're in control of those towers. They send leaflets. They issue, say, you've got hours to get out. They don't give like a minute's warning. They want people out. People are told to leave, and then Israel gets attacked because people leave Gaza City so that they can then go in and defeat Hamas. Hamas build the London Underground's worth of tunnels using billions in aid sent supposedly for the Gazan people. They spend 20 years building those tunnels. Enough tunnels, by the way, for every single member of public or every single civilian in those areas to be hidden and safe from those bombs. Do they let the civilians in? No. What they want is for babies and children and women to be killed, and they want to then put that out in their propaganda. You have never, ever once seen any films of the following things. A Hamas fighter, a man, being treated in hospital, or his body being carried with his gun beside him, because Hamas don't allow that image to go out. And B, you have never actually seen images of famine. No, you've seen some kids who were ill.
And let's just get this right, because this whole war has been like playing whack-a-mole with lie after lie after lie. Yeah. That kid that had his image disgracefully splashed across international newspapers, we were told, is the victim of a famine. In fact, he was receiving medical treatment in Italy
for 2 months
for a long-standing health problem that he had, which is developmental problems. Now, that child, I have nothing but sympathy for and compassion for, like many children born with congenital problems, and I'm
quite a big issue in a place where they have higher rates of cousin marriage, by the way.
Quite. I've got nothing but admiration for the doctors that were treating him. But to exploit an image of that baby in order to tell a lie about a conflict going on hundreds or thousands of miles away from that was disgusting. And there are newspapers in this country that put that image on the front page that have absolutely categorically failed to adequately apologise for being a useful idiot, and they were useful idiots, in the lies of a terrorist group that is going around murdering, raping, killing anyone that it can get his hands on. Shame on them, and shame on everybody that doesn't put their hands up and just say,
indeed. I mean, the latest claims is this supposed journalist, in inverted commas. I don't want journalists killed in war. They should be protected. Some journalists, we're told some 200, I think, journalists, but about 100 of them, very questionable credentials, intellectuals, and they're basically working for Hamas. But just Saleh al-Jafrawi, I'm sure I mispronounced that, he has been killed. We're told by the Israelis on the last day that this man has been all over the TV in the Middle East, all over the place. Very, very famous name. The interesting thing is, of course, he's also been, not just as a journalist, posing with and always somehow at the heart of things. Incredible access this journalist got, but he's also been seen, being a father mourning his child. He's been working as an aid worker. He's been a doctor. I mean, the man he's like Mr. Ben. He's literally like, remember Mr. Ben when we were kids? And he's like, he puts another outfit on. Oh, look, I come out of the dressing room of the shop and look who I am today.
Mr. Ben,
I mean, he literally, that's how old I am. He literally is, is a caricature of is a joke. It's a joke. He also, it is thought, actually was probably killed by one of the other clans, one of the other militia. Lots of anger towards this man who'd been protected by Hamas until this point, because he is alleged to have helped to lead fundraising, some $10 million or something for a hospital, and then basically siphoned off a load of the cash for himself.
Oh, surprise, surprise.
I know, it's all very, very shocking. But the latest lie is that Israel killed him.
Yeah, and look, I mean, honestly, they've all, Hollywood casting agents should head to Gaza and get in there, because they've all had these careers as extras. Everyone in Hamas does different stuff. And we saw, oh, you're the son of the Deputy Agriculture Minister.
Yeah.
Ah, good news. The BBC would like you to present a totally impartial documentary.
And pay you for it.
And pay you for it into what's going on around you.
Right. Benjamin Netanyahu is now addressing the parliament, addressing Donald Trump in the Israeli parliament, the Knesset. So we're going to take a very brief break, hopefully that not missing any words from Donald Trump. So do stay tuned. This is Talk. We are the home of common sense.
There will definitely be an urgent question. We know that the Commons Speaker as well, who will be the one who will grant the urgent question, was not particularly happy about what happened. And when it was first reported that the case had collapsed, he said that the government needed to answer lots of questions. And at the time, we didn't even know that the CBS had asked for that material. You know, this was like a month or so ago. And the Commons Speaker was not happy. So we'll definitely see some action in Parliament, and we'll see how the government does.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. This is Talk, the home of common sense. Benjamin Netanyahu, the Israeli Prime Minister, currently addressing the Israeli Parliament. So we're pretty sure it's safe for us to go to another guest. Wanted to get your calls in, but obviously we any moment we're expecting to go to Donald Trump live in the Israeli Parliament. Not able to do that. He has had a 4-minute standing ovation. And we do know some of the things of what he's going to say, including he's going to tell them that countries working together towards peace under the Gaza Agreement represents, he'll say, an incredible triumph for Israel and the world. And we'll say Israel has won all that can be won by force of arms. And he said it was time to translate what he described as victories against terrorists into peace and prosperity for the Middle East. Well, we'll see if that all comes upon us. Let's go to a quick, let's go to another guest now, actually. We're going to try and get your calls in as well, if we can, in this next half hour. Give us a call on 0344 499 1000 to have your say on what we're talking about. But let's go to Liam Halligan now, as an economist and author of the Substack When the Facts Change, to talk about, well, where we are in terms of British politics. A very good morning to you, Liam.
Hi, Julia. Good to be with you.
Thanks very much for joining us. Now, I know you've got your economics commentator hat on, but I'd just love to get your thoughts as someone who was, a political lobby journalist for a long number of years. What you make of this claim from Bridget Phillips and the Education Secretary yesterday, which has been laughed at by the US ambassador to Israel, Huckabee, saying that Britain had played a vital role in this Middle East peace deal?
I think it's desperation for relevance, desperation by Labour's high command to try and challenge the idea that they're completely in hock to their own hard left, to the Muslim vote, which they are increasingly. And for, Mike Huckabee isn't just any old US ambassador. He's a former Republican nominee candidate, a very serious guy.
And he was openly mocking our government on social media.
A friend of the UK. And so for Mike Huckabee to be openly mocking her, it must be pretty bad.
Well, indeed.
I think Phillipson showing about as much knowledge of foreign policy as she shows about education policy, by putting VAT on school fees for independent schools, which of course will cost the Exchequer money, Julia. Because
as we've seen, because more of the kids get forced out.
We warned her at the time, they wouldn't listen.
Yeah, and what a surprise. There are actually an awful lot of parents who absolutely scrabble around and, no holidays, no car, none of the fancy stuff to get their kids an education, and only just able to make those fees now can't. So what a surprise. Then the taxpayer has to pay for their kids in state school. It's almost like, we could have predicted this, but there we are. Let's talk about more sort of economic things, because, and this all ties in with the international politics as well, because we have this collapse of this Chinese spy trial, accusations that Keir Starmer's senior advisor, national security advisor Jonathan Powell, I mean, this man's name keeps coming up in every story, but this is now related to claims that Britain is sort of kowtowing to the Chinese, dropping a Chinese spy trial, interfering with that, approving, we think, this new massive super Chinese embassy in the heart of London, and all because basically we are in hock to the Chinese economically. Tell us what's going on.
Well, China, on some definitions, Julia, is now the biggest economy in the world. It has been for quite a few years on what we call a purchasing power parity basis, when you allow for spending power of local currencies. I've just spent the last 2 weeks in Central Asia. As you know, I used to be a foreign correspondent in the former Soviet world. I mean, the Chinese are all over Central Asia. They've replaced Russia easily now as the biggest, most powerful economic player in what used to be Russia's backyard. They're building all kinds of infrastructure, pipelines, trains across and along the old Silk Road. Very powerful. And of course, they are a massive creditor to the Western world, lending the Western world lots of money, not least our country. Never forget that the way the Eurozone managed to sort itself out in the end is that quite a few ports and pieces of infrastructure went to the Chinese. Is that what's going to happen here in this country if we need some kind of assistance on the budgetary side, which is a story I've been talking about for many months now, lampooned, of course, at the beginning, now increasingly so-called serious economists, I would say cowardly, are finally putting their head over the top and saying this could actually be a problem. The IMF hasn't got enough money to bail out some of these Western economies, including our own these days.
And France, who are in dire straits.
Are we going to go to cap in hand to the Chinese? Look, as you know, I want lots and lots of trade. I want lots of free trade. I think I think President Trump had some justification for tackling the tariff imbalances. For many years, the tariffs on US goods have been much higher, particularly from the Chinese, also the Europeans, than the tariffs that the Americans charge goods coming in from the rest of the world. But in the last few weeks, of course, it's the Chinese that have upped the ante by blocking overseas access to a lot of the rare earths, the special raw materials,
which they've been buying up for the last decade or so across Africa.
It's not just they've been buying them up, but also they've been investing heavily in the processing capability. They've got 90% now of the processing capability, being able to convert rare earths that you mine into the powders that you can use in magnets and electric vehicles and gigafactories and batteries. And so on. This is, along with semiconductors, and of course the Chinese are eyeing Taiwan, which produces, most of the world's advanced semiconductors. Along with semiconductors, rare earths are the oil and gas of our age. And the Chinese are in a very, very powerful position. So
but it is extraordinary this has been allowed to happen. This has been creeping along. And again, I know you've been talking about this, I've been talking about this, but when we're tying our hands with high energy prices, buying Chinese-made, electric cars, ruining our car industry, our steel industry, you name it, every other industry, and tying our own hands for any other manufacturing. Meanwhile, making AI pretty much impossible in this country on a grand scale because of the cost of energy. It involves a huge amount of energy. Not building up our military, not being economically secure in any way at all, and then getting into massive debt, selling off, our capital city to Qatar, to China as well. It seems to me that our supposed, clever ruling classes, the technocrats, the bureaucrats who we were told are oh so clever and will do such a better job than running the country than, us mere mortals, us voters. They've not been very good at it.
Well, there aren't really that many plaudits and post-politics professional opportunities. If you ask the tough questions when you're actually in office, the way our political and media class seems to work is those people that stand up for reality and ask grown-up questions, they just seem to be dismissed as awkward and having bad values. That's absolutely nonsense. I think the public is screaming for the grown-ups to stand up and exert some kind of discipline in the way we run our public finances, in the way we run our foreign policy. What I do know, Julia, and I've seen a lot of these people throughout the years I've spent knocking about British politics and economics, is there's an awful lot of our political media class who are entirely self-serving. They'll sell our country's interests down the river if it means they get a nice post-retirement sinecure with one of the great powers. That's not how it should work. People should be respected for their analytical ability, standing up for their own country in a fair but firm way, promoting free trade, but not in a way which completely, submits and surrenders to anyone else.
Because economic power is military power. You can't be in military power without economic power. You can't be in economic power without secure energy, without basic supplies. It's amazing how much they don't seem to get stuff. You're an expert in this. I'm absolutely not, but I could grasp it. I find it strange that the people who are supposedly experts can't. Let's talk about what is coming up economically in this country, though, because we're paying lots of focus on what's going on, in Number 10 or on our streets or in Israel. But we are sitting there with that sort of tsunami approaching us of the autumn budget on November the 26th. And there doesn't seem to be anyone at all who doesn't expect there to be tax rises. The question is what tax rises we are going to get, who they're going to hit, and who's going to be blamed for it? Because I think, frankly, laughable claims over the weekend that the Rachel Reeves, the Chancellor, is going to try and blame Nigel Farage for the fact she's got to put taxes up.
Yeah, I think it's complete displacement activity by Labour. They think they're being very, very clever playing these political parlour games, or maybe we can calibrate and pivot and go for this part of the electorate if we blame these people. Pure fantasy. Financial markets, they don't give a monkeys about these parlour games. They don't give a monkeys about the fiscal rules. What they care about is cold, hard cash flow, Julia, and the cash flow is really bad. We're borrowing upwards of 10, 15 billion quid every single month as a government, sometimes even more. A big chunk of that, between half and 2/3 most months of what we're borrowing, we're spending on debt, more debt interest on existing debt. So that begins to look like a Ponzi scheme. And why has Rachel Reeves put the budget so far ahead in the future? It just extends the pain. You know, she's absolutely killed the top end of the housing market by saying, oh, maybe stamp duty will change, maybe it will go, who knows, lots of speculation. Already the OBR is warning, as they've been warning for some months to their credit, that if you put up in capital gains tax anymore, you're actually going to get a lot less capital gains tax. We are now beyond the peak of what we call the Laffer curve, where putting up high tax rates means that you actually get less tax revenue. Look, it's almost the most sensible thing she could do now is break them. If she's going to go down that higher tax route, which I wouldn't, I would be having proper, attempts to slow down the rate of increase and even lower spending in some parts of the UK. A third more civil servants than 2016. Everybody, why? That's completely...
but you've got to have. Come on, there's no doubt about it. Liam Halligan, it's a fact that the country is a third better run now. We've got all those extra civil servants. Haven't you noticed?
I haven't noticed, I'm afraid. And it's almost as if the most sensible thing to do, if she is going to go down the tax route, is actually to put up one of the big taxes. Because at least by trying to put up all these smaller taxes, you're just doing so much damage to specific wealth-creating activities that the rest of the country needs. She thinks she's being really clever putting up employer national insurance. Well, well done, Rachel, because hiring's fallen off a cliff since last October. So I think Labour need to get hold of the public finances in a much more meaningful way. But I don't think they will, because I don't think they've got the intellectual grit, determination, or otherwise. And ideologically, a lot of people on the Labour backbenches, they think that the only reason a Labour Party exists is to increase taxes and more.
And more, beneficence to hand out to their people.
Not the way to run a country.
It really isn't. Liam Halligan, economist, author of the Substack When the Facts Change. Well worth a read. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. Sam Armstrong is still with me in the studio. The thing is, we've got this bubbling away in the background, haven't we? Because we are facing some serious economic problems. There are a lot of people in this country, a lot of businesses, a lot of families who are really struggling right now, and it's all about they think there might be some more handouts, but actually, there is no direction of travel that doesn't involve us spending more on debt and having tax rises. I'm afraid, realistically, that's what's going to happen, and benefit cuts and other welfare cuts and other general cuts, because there is no choice. The numbers don't add up anymore.
Well, the Labour Party has been very clear with their own Prime Minister. They won't support him in doing what it needs to be done in order to get the welfare count down. And so long as he can't do that, so long as he can't clamp down on spending on net zero, and it doesn't look like he has the strength to stand up to Ed Miliband, you are going to see that the financial situation goes worse and worse and worse. And remember, this is a sort of different crash, because in every crash, the economies always crash. They just do.
Boom and bust. That was ended by Gordon Brown. You need to check your notes.
But in every crash up until 2008, basically it came at the end of a long extended period of prosperity. People have been getting wealthier, probably things have got a bit out of control, and there was an adjustment. This is different. The people of this country are £20,000 worse off than if we'd continued rising at the rate that we would have done up until 2005. We've had a profound period of going backwards in
and then we're going to get the crash as well.
Crash on top. And boy, if you think we've got political problems now, you wait till that moment comes.
Absolutely. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Just to let you know, Prime Minister Netanyahu is still speaking in the Knesset in the Israeli parliament. Donald Trump waiting patiently. Unlike him, he has been wildly praised, though. Netanyahu has said that Donald Trump's name will be engraved in Israel's history and in the annals of humankind. And he has personally thanked Donald Trump for that. And he says this, that obviously every single live hostage is now back in Israeli territory. But he also said he is committed to this peace. I promise you we'll bring you Donald Trump live when he does speak. Right now, let's take a very quick break, then we'll get to your calls. This is Talk.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Talk, the Home of Common Sense. Don't forget, we'll bring you the President of the United States speaking in the Israeli Parliament whenever he is actually able to speak. I'm not sure he is right now, but as soon as he does, I promise I'll bring it to you. Netanyahu giving lots and lots of praise for the US President. Let's go to your phone calls, 0344 499 1000 on this incredible day with the release of the 20 live living hostages back in Israel in safety with their families. And of course, another 28 we're expecting some of those, hopefully as many as possible, to their bodies to be returned as well. Let's talk to Herbie, who's in Harrow. Hello, Herbie. What do you want to say?
Good morning, Julie. Well, what great news that these hostages are now free, and I hope the world can have a sigh of relief and perhaps we might get some peace at last. But I'd like to know what our Prime Minister is doing yet again with his signature book over in Egypt, you know, when the country is...
I love this. He's an autograph hunter. I love this image.
You know, it's unbelievable. I don't know why we don't rent out number 10, because he's never there. He's never there. For God's sake, the man's a buffoon. You know, we can put the asylum seekers in there. There's enough room there for them, and it'd be cheaper. But, you know, the man's done nothing. The country's in the state. We're in turmoil here, and he's now offering more money to Palestine or to Gaza. For what reason? These potholes need repairing here. These things need doing over here. Why are we giving all our money away to foreign countries when we need it here in our own country?
But also, it's ridiculous. Like, oh, please pay attention to us. There's some water and sanitation. Absolutely needed. Well, Qatar can sodding well pay for it. They've been happy to sit there and host. Why don't the leaders of Hamas living in their billionaire lifestyles in Qatar, why don't they put some money towards it? I mean, the idea that all these multi-billionaire leaders of these Arab states shouldn't be paying for this, your problem, you deal with it. I don't know why we're expected to pay for everything in the world.
But we've offered to rebuild it as well. What in God's name is this man up to? Does he really hate us that much that he's really torturing us day by day by day? Is this really what it boils down to, Julie? I really don't believe it.
I despair as well. I couldn't agree with you more. You know, let's hope he makes a decent cup of coffee when he's allowed to come in during the coffee break during those talks in Egypt, and then he can make himself useful for once. Thank you for that, Herbie. Sydney is on the line, and he's in London and wants to have his say. Good morning to you, Sydney.
Morning, Julie. I just wanted to phone. Good morning. I just wanted to phone on behalf of all the Jewish people here and abroad to thank yourself, Sam, and all the commentators, all your staff for the unstinting support you've given us over the last 2 years. It's absolutely remarkable.
Well, that's very kind. But when I get lots of people can stop me in the street and say, also, I get the horrible abuse on social media. I figure, you know, if the right people are happy, the wrong people are unhappy, and it's fine. But here's the thing. No one should ever have to thank people for, and it's very sweet that you do, but I'm just sitting here in my chair. I'm not doing anything useful. I'm not sending my kid off, you know, in the IDF. I'm actually like families in Israel that are actually suffering, worrying about their children coming back alive. But no one should ever have to thank anyone for standing up for what is the easiest black and white moral issue in the last decade.
But whilst you shouldn't have to, you have done so. So on behalf of myself, my family, and everybody on this auspicious day, just wanted to thank you and everybody. But can I just say,
yes, please do.
I saw an hour and a half ago, you showed this clip about this young boy running around with a jihadi flag in the West End. So I'll tell you what happened to me 4 months ago. I was driving along in Nottingham. I got stopped by the police. I wasn't wearing a kippah or anything like that, so he couldn't tell I was Jewish, and he just asked me to hold on a moment. So I held on, stopped the car, and a minute later there were four police vans coming along, and all of a sudden they got out in riot gear and was practicing their riots. So I said, we could have done with you in London these last 6 months, these last 9 months. He said, no. We've been told to take a softly approach with them.
Absolutely. And we know that. You can see it. There's completely two-tier policing, depending on whether it's a march by people holding Palestinian flags or the United Kingdom flag. You know the difference. Yeah, how outrageous.
But unfortunately, I don't know how much longer us Jews have got to live in this country.
Please,
we may be on the move again.
Please don't leave, because I don't want anyone ever leaving this country. And I for everyone of any faith who wants to live here peacefully and be a part of this land and this culture. Sydney, thank you for your call. That's very, very kind of you. We're still waiting for. I think we were expecting Donald Trump to be speaking about an hour ago. He's getting lots of praise. He's very much the centre of attention and responding to stuff that Netanyahu is saying, the Prime Minister of Israel speaking in the Knesset. And it is absolutely fascinating. People talk, when you hear the BBC in the Sky going on and on about how unpopular Netanyahu is. Well, he's getting a lot of applause. He had a standing ovation in the Israeli parliament a little bit earlier for his role in agreeing to this peace. He says, I'm committed to this peace. Maybe he can help sort out relations between us and the EU, because I want to talk about that right now. Simon Coulter joins us as well. He's travel correspondent at The Independent. And let's talk, Simon, about the new EU border checks that we've heard so much about for so many years, delayed. Now they have actually come into force. What are they, and what will they mean for us here in the UK?
Yes, very exciting times here, exactly as we requested. And this, of course, goes back to Brexit, because we knew that the entry-exit system would be coming along. We negotiated to be third country nationals, and starting yesterday, we began to get exactly what we asked for. And this is what you find at Prague Airport, which is the biggest airport where you are seeing these checks going ahead. You get off the plane, you see all these tall kiosks scattered almost randomly around the airport. You go up to one, you put your passport in with the with the business page about who you are and all that sort of stuff. It then comes up with a picture and your birthday, and it says, "Is this you?" And you say, "Yes, sorry about the photo." And then you get on and you do the finger, you get a proper facial biometric. Then you have to scan the 4 fingers of your right hand, then your left hand. Then you're asked a whole bunch of questions about whether you've got enough money. €66 a day in cash they want, or a credit or debit card, accommodation, a return ticket, and travel insurance. Then, well, once you've cleared all that, and I timed it as about 3 minutes it took me, you then go and do the check actually in the old analogue way, with an actual person sitting there having a look at your passport and saying, right, OK, I'm going to stamp this passport. So it's double red tape. That will continue until April.
And the key thing here is, different countries in Europe are implementing it differently. Obviously, most people in Britain, they travel to Spain, they travel to France, but particularly in the summer. This has been done in the autumn, nice bit of time to get it done. But I could understand, let's bring it in slowly. And when we haven't got huge numbers of people travelling. And now I'm going to have to interrupt. I do apologise, Simon Calder. We're going to have to leave that there, because I think Donald Trump is actually now about to speak, long-awaited speech in the Knesset, in the Israeli parliament. So we're going to have to leave that. I do apologise. Hopefully we'll try and come back to you. But let's go straight live now to Israel.
אני מתכבד להזמין כעת את ראש האופוזיציה, חבר הכנסת...
Not actually speaking yet. I'm not quite sure what the delay is. There's been so many different people. And in fact, right, let's go back. Is Simon Calder still there? Can we go back to Simon Calder? Yeah. Simon, I do apologise. I've got the footage up. Basically, pretty much everybody in the world is speaking before Donald Trump. There we are. Apologies there. I can understand, bringing it in gradually over a period, because it was supposed to come in just before the Paris Olympics. The French went, oh, no, let's not do that, and upset all our American visitors. So here's the thing. We're not going to be... It's not just aimed at us. It's aimed at anyone. If you're not in the EU, then you have to do that. Or in the other countries that they allow, you're not going to do this. But is it going to be the same every single time? Or once you've done your biometrics, will you get to go in a different queue, so you're not queuing behind, an entire family with 8 kids who next July are doing it for the first time?
No, it's going to be slightly easier. So the thing, Julia, that I think people find really awkward and perhaps intrusive is fingerprinting. That's something we've not typically done. Of course, if you've been to the US, you've probably had your fingerprints taken on arrival there. But it's awkward, it's difficult, but you should only have to do it once, because once they've got Julia Hartley-Brewer's fingerprints stored and your facial biometric, they say, we know who that is. And even if you turn up with a new passport, we'll say, that's Julia. Her passport photo really doesn't do her justice, but it's very nice to see her. And you will just get the facial biometric check. So probably fingerprints only once, but no extra queues. You are going to have a two-tier system where EU nationals, including Irish passport holders, speed through, and the rest of us join up. And I've been picking out where the worst queues are going to be. I predict Paris Charles de Gaulle between 5:45 and 6 a.m. You've got 9 wide-bodied flights coming in from right across the world, with mostly people who will need to go through these checks.
And that's good. Now, different countries implementing it differently. We know also ports are going to be one of the bigger problems because there's a limited amount of space, and we've seen when the French decide not to put too many customs officers on their passport office on their side, that's when we get difficulties. But people have been told to wait, expect to wait up to 4 hours in these queues initially.
Well, there's all kinds of warnings. The Port of Dover says, yep, we're going to get, we've invested lots of time and money in this, and we're going to do it right. But Dover at the moment, starting yesterday afternoon, is just weird. If you're on a coach, you go to Dover Western Docks, no ferries from there anymore. You go into a building, a bit like a big shed. You do your biometric thing, you get back on the coach, it is then sealed, and then in the manner of driving through East Germany between West Germany and West Berlin, the coach proceeds magisterially through the town of Dover. Nobody can get on or off, and then you go through the normal stuff when you get to the ferry. So it's going to be quite lively. Every port, there's 1,800 frontier points in the Schengen area. All of those have to do things, but they can all do them a bit differently.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, isn't it? It's going to take a while. But I was just hoping that, OK, once you've done it once, whether or not the rest of your Britain and America have done it, once you've done it once, can you then join a quicker queue? You don't have to go and...
all that's going to happen is that that you will... You might be able to speed past the people who, for the first time, are filling
doing their biometric. That's the thing is, if you've done it, I was wondering. We travel a lot. Oh, is it going to be worth it? Do we all just, try and do a quick trip over while it's quiet, get it done, and then next time you're travelling, it'll be fine. But not an option for most people. But a lot of people who travel for business, it might be a big deal. But again, if only we could have someone to try and negotiate the peace between us and the EU. Here's the thing, though. We were told that with good relations with the people. With the EU, under Keir Starmer, we wouldn't face any difficulties. But I'm sure this is all still, Nigel Farage, Boris Johnson, mine and every other Brexiteer's fault. But hey, don't want to be in the EU. This is the price. Here's the thing, though, Simon. If they don't want us to visit, maybe we won't visit anymore. That might be an issue for them. Simon Calder, travel correspondent at The Independent. Thank you very much. Right, we're going to take a punt that we can go to a news briefing. I promise we'll come straight out if and when Donald Trump does speak for the Knesset. I've said for years, we don't do live speeches for this very reason, but it looks like pretty much everyone in Israel is going to be speaking in the Knesset before Donald Trump gets to do so. He did actually get up to speak at the podium and thought it was him up next, and it wasn't him. But we're going to get the latest headlines. Don't forget to put your calls in. Love to hear your thoughts on everything we're talking about today. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. If you want to talk about passport queues to the EU, feel free to call in about that as well, plus the hostage release and plenty more besides. This is Talk. We are the home of common sense.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good afternoon. Welcome back to the show. 2 minutes past midday is the time. This is Talk, the home of common sense, with me, Julia Hartley-Brewer. Very much appreciate your company. Thank you for joining me. Whether you're listening on DAB+ radio, on your smart speaker, watching on YouTube, or your connected device, it's great to have your company. So much to talk about today. Of course, it's an incredible day. And I think it's not just an incredible day for Israel. Anyone who's been following the horrors of the events since October the 7th, 2023 should be, I think, frankly, shedding a little tear. I know I did this morning when I realised that the first hostages were actually out of Gaza and had been handed over, well, not to the Red Cross. I mean, nice of them to bother. They haven't been around much, have they, over the last 2 years? Didn't visit a single hostage. Didn't even try, by all accounts. But there we are. If they did try, they certainly weren't complaining that Hamas weren't giving them access. But 20 men who have been held captive. Yes, some of them are soldiers. Yes, some of them, taken in their pyjamas, but conscripts, young men, taken. Under no circumstances have they been treated as captives in war, because if they had, they would have had rights which are established in the rules of war, which they simply have not had while they've been starved and tortured and beaten and abused, held in tunnels underground for the last 2 years. But they are home, not just in Israel, back with their families. It's an amazing and wonderful day. And whether you've been on the side of Israel during this, i.e. on the side of right, or been on the side of Gaza, claiming that you are so concerned about the people of Gaza, but for some reason at no point suggesting that actually the real solution for the civilians of Gaza, the babies, the children, the women that you care so much about, is for Hamas to be destroyed, the tunnels to be gone, and for there to be peace in the Middle East, because they accept a two-state solution, which would include the state of Israel still existing and the Jewish people in Israel still existing. At no point, if they've called for that, then are they really on the side of peace? Are they really on the side of Gaza? The fact that while there was already a ceasefire in place, we had thousands of people marching in the streets over this last couple of days for apparently an end to the war, an end to the genocide that hasn't been happening, for aid to go in, which it has been doing, when there was literally a ceasefire happening and a peace deal on the table. It is extraordinary, the lies that they have told themselves and told the world. Well, those lies are no more, because we've got those hostages back in the bosom of their families. The bodies of some 28, possibly not all of them today, who have died in captivity with Hamas, murdered. Let's use the word, murdered by their hostage takers. They will be returned later this afternoon. Unfortunately, we don't have knowledge about, very sadly, one of the hostages who I've spoken to, the mother, only last week. Unfortunately, we don't know everything that is going on and everyone who's going to be returned. But it is a wonderful, wonderful day. And we're going to be talking more about that. Prince Andrew is also going to be talked about a little bit later. And another fascinating little line on the Labour ID scheme, digital ID scheme, which will, of course, something that most of our audience, I think, as opposed to as I am. But, it's amazing how Tony Blair's got his fingers in every single pot of every story that we're actually talking about today. But we are also going to be going live, I promise you, to the Knesset, the Israeli Parliament, as and when Donald Trump does actually get up to speak to address the Parliament. We've had pretty much everyone in Israel, as far as I can tell, has got up to make a speech or had a standing ovation for them. This is an incredibly significant day. Sam Armstrong is still with me. He's a commentator joining me on this day. I'm in the blue and white of the Israeli flag. I've got my Israeli flag in my bag. I've got my yellow ribbon on. I'm really hoping by the end of today I never have to wear this ribbon, bought in Hostage Square in Tel Aviv ever again. But the scenes of jubilation we have seen have been extraordinary. The relief, but the recognition, the sadness, the horror of what has gone on, not just to the hostages, but also to innocent civilians in Gaza over the last 2 years as a result of Hamas's actions, is such a heavy toll to have been paid. 738
days, hundreds of Israelis killed, others raped, hundreds of Gazans killed, thousands of Gazans killed, largely as a result of the actions of Hamas. But it's extraordinary, the scenes we're seeing right now in the Knesset. We've heard from both Benjamin Netanyahu and Yair Lapid, the leader of the opposition. And never forget, of course, until very recently, we were told that Benjamin Netanyahu was fighting this war in order to save his own skin. Well, Yair Lapid, who is the leader of the opposition, it's literally his job to oppose everything that Benjamin Netanyahu says. And he's said, I say to all those who've demonstrated against Israel, I am the leader of the opposition, and I tell you, you were deceived. Yeah. Now that the war has stopped, you have a time and a chance to go and learn the facts. The truth is, there was no genocide, no intentional starvation.
And this is a man with no love for Netanyahu. They are sworn enemies.
Sworn enemies. They have been fighting at each other for 20, 30 years. And I do hope that with this, that we just see yet another series of lies crumble, that there are those who, you know, if you're thinking today, if you're listening along and you thought, if think honestly, and if you thought this is never going to happen, awful, yada yada, and events have proven you wrong, have a think, have a reflect, and just contemplate the fact you might have been wrong. I love being wrong because it gives you a chance to learn and move on and move forwards. And there is massive amounts of people that need to reflect on some of the nonsense that they've believed in recent months, as I say, including far too many journalists in this country.
Yes, I mean, we have spoken very openly about people at the BBC, at ITV, at Sky, who have been given completely false information, absolutely false information. Oh, goodness me, I think we may have actually got Donald Trump at the podium speaking in Knesset. Lots of applause going on now. We'll just wait until he actually starts speaking, but let us go live to Donald Trump speaking in the Israeli parliament.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much, everybody. It's a great honor. Nice place. Very nice place. Mr. President, Mr. Prime Minister, Mr. Speaker, esteemed members of the Knesset and cherished citizens of Israel, we gather on a day of profound joy, of soaring hope, of renewed faith, and above all, a day to give our deepest thanks to the Almighty God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. After 2 harrowing years in darkness and captivity, 20 courageous hostages are returning to the glorious embrace of their families, and it is glorious. 28 more precious loved ones are coming home at last to rest in this sacred soil for all of time. And after so many years of unceasing war and endless danger, today the skies are calm, the guns are silent, the sirens are still, and the sun rises on a holy land that is finally at peace, a land and a region that will live, God willing, in peace for all eternity. This is not only the end of a war, this is the end of an age of terror and death, and the beginning of the age of faith and hope and of God. It's the start of a grand concord and lasting harmony for Israel and all the nations of what will soon be a truly magnificent region. I believe that so strongly. This is the historic dawn of a new Middle East. I want to express my gratitude to a man of exceptional courage and patriotism, whose partnership did so much to make this momentous day possible. You know who I'm talking about. There's only one, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Bibi, please stand up. And he is not easy, I want to tell you that. He's not the easiest guy to deal with, but that's what makes him great. That's what makes him great. Thank you very much, baby. Great job. And let me also convey my tremendous appreciation for all of the nations of the Arab and Muslim world that came together to press Hamas to set the hostages free and to send them home. We had a lot of help. We had a lot of help from a lot of people that you wouldn't suspect, and I want to thank them very much for that. It's an incredible triumph for Israel and the world to have all of these nations working together as partners in peace. And it's pretty unusual for you to see that, but it happened in this case. This was a very unusual point in time, a brilliant point in time. Generations from now, this will be remembered as the moment that everything began to change, and change very much for the better. Like the USA right now, it will be the golden age of Israel and the golden age of the Middle East. It's going to work together. I'd like to thank several great American patriots for their invaluable help in getting something done that almost everyone thought was absolutely impossible. We were wasting our time. So many people said, "You're just wasting your time." But we weren't, because we had talented people working with us, and we had people that loved your country, and frankly, people that loved the region. They loved the Middle East. I want to thank my friend Steve Witkoff. You know, Steve was chosen by me. He never did this before, but I knew him as a few things. He was a great businessman, but I know a lot of great businessmen, to be honest with you. He had tremendous negotiating skills, but I know a lot of people that negotiate pretty well, although it is an art. But there are people that can negotiate pretty well. But most importantly with Steve, he's just a great guy. Everybody loved him. Everybody. I mean, I know some negotiators that are so good, but you wouldn't have had peace in the Middle East. You would be in World War III right now with some of these guys. Everybody loves Steve, and they respect him, and they somehow can relate to him. I've known him for many years, and I've seen it over and over again.
להוציא את חבר הכנסת עודה, להוציא אותו מהאולם, להוציא אותו מיד, החוצה, החוצה.
Just, we were listening to Donald Trump there giving a speech praising Steve Witkoff, but someone has just run through the Knesset, the Israeli Parliament chamber, and has been caught by security now. Applause from those in the chamber as that man is removed, trying to give some sort of statement. Let's go back to Donald Trump. Oh, no, he's not yet back speaking, as applause that the protester has been removed, bundled out of the Israeli parliament. And Donald Trump still at the podium. He's just been talking about how people said we were wasting our time, but not the case. Let's go back to Donald Trump.
So back to Steve. He's... But I tell one story because he was so involved, and then we called in Jared. We need that brain on occasion. We got to get Jared in here. We got to get a certain group of people. But Steve started this all by himself. I call him Henry Kissinger, who doesn't leak, okay? Henry is a big leaker. He leaked Steve doesn't leak. Steve just wants to get the job done. He wants to do what's right. But I'll give you just a quick story because, as you know, he's working on the war with Russia and Ukraine, a war that would have never happened if I were president. A shame. 7,000 young soldiers a week are being killed. More than that this last week. It's a shame. Should have never happened. But it did happen, and we won the race, and I took over this horrible war that's been raging, and I thought it would be easily settled. I thought it was a hell of a lot easier than doing what we just did very successfully with Israel and a lot of other people. But this came first, and we'll get that one. But I set up a meeting for him to meet with President Putin, thinking it would be a 15 or a 20-minute meeting. Steve had no idea about Russia, had no idea about Putin too much, didn't know too much about politics, wasn't that interested. He was really good at real estate, but he had that quality that I was looking for, and I didn't see it around in too many ways. And I set up the meeting with Putin, and I called. I said, is Steve finished yet? That was about a half an hour into the meeting. No, sir, he's not. He's still inside. This is in Moscow. I said, well, how's he doing? I don't know, sir. He's still inside. I called up an hour later. Let me speak to Steve. Sir, he's still with Putin. He's with President Putin. I said, wow, that's a long meeting, 1 hour. I called up an hour later, he was still with Putin. 3 hours later, he was still with Putin. 4 hours later, he started to get the word that he was going to be coming out soon. And in 5 hours, he came out. I said, what the hell were you talking about for 5 hours? And he says, just a lot of interesting things. We're talking about a lot of interesting things, including what he went in there for, but you can't talk about it for 5. You can talk about it for a certain period of time, and you know what you're getting. But that's a talent. That's a talent, where you can do that. Most people I'd send in, number one, they wouldn't be accepted. Number two, if they were, the meeting would last 5 minutes, and that's what happens with Steve. Everybody loves him. They love him on this side. They love him on the other side. And he really is. He's a great negotiator because he's a great guy. So thank you very much, Steve. Very much. And let me also give a very special thanks to someone who truly loves Israel. In fact, loves it so much that my daughter converted. My daughter converted. I didn't know this was going to happen. And Ivanka's here. And Bibi, you do know this was not in the cards for me. You understand that. And she is so happy, and they are so happy. At least I think they're happy. If they're not, we have a big story, right? No, they have a great marriage, and they get along great. They're best friends. They have a very special relationship. But Jared has been so helpful. He really did something very special. He established the Abraham Accords with a group of very wonderful people. I like calling it the Avraham Accords because people that, right? Avraham. It's so cool. It's so much sort of nicer, you know, the Abraham versus the Avraham. I just don't want to sound too sanctimonious when I do it, so, you know, I sort of split it up. This way we keep everybody happy. But we have some very great talent, and they have no excuses for anything that's taken place because we had some unbelievably good people working on this. And then you're going to add a man named Marco Rubio, who is also here. That's right. And I have a prediction that Marco will go down, I mean this, as the greatest Secretary of State in the history of the United States. I believe that. I believe it. And he and I, you know, we really fought it out. You remember, he was tough. He was nasty. Who the hell thought this was going to happen, Marco, right? And now I'm saying he's going to go down as the greatest. He will. He was always smart and sharp, and people respect him. And then we have somebody who's young, but an unbelievable leader. I saw it a long time ago, and he's turned out to be even better than we thought. Right, Susie? I think even better. And that's Pete Hegseth, who is our Secretary of War, formerly Secretary of Defense. And as you know, we decisively won World War I. We decisively won World War II decisively. And everything in between and everything before it, we won everything. And then they had the brilliant idea of changing the name from war, you know, it was war, to defense. And with that went a certain thinking. And we fought in a very politically correct way after that. We always had the strongest military, and now we have a stronger military than we've ever had before. Because of my first term, I've totally rebuilt the military, every aspect of it. But we have, if you think, we settled 8 wars in 8 months. I'm now including this one, by the way, if that's okay. They may say, well, that was quick. Because yesterday I was saying 7, but now I can say 8. The hostages are back. The hostages are back. It is a good feeling. Isn't that nice to say? You know, I just said the hostage. First time I said the hostages are back. It feels so good to say it. But when you settle 8 wars in 8 months, that means you don't like war. Everyone thought I was going to be brutal. In fact, I remember Hillary Clinton during a debate, she said, look at him. He's going to go to war with everybody. And actually, she said, he's got a personality that's all about war. No, and my personality actually is all about stopping wars, and it seems to work. Seems to work. But it also means this name change and our attitude that we're not going to go into a war, but if we do, we're going to win that war like nobody has ever won a war before. We will not be politically correct. But we're not going to be there. And I think, you know, as you mentioned, Bibi, before, peace through strength. And that's what it's all about. The United States has the greatest and most powerful military in the, right now, history of the world. I can tell you we have weapons that nobody's ever dreamt of. I only hope we never have to use them. I rebuilt the military. I was proud to do it. But some of the things I hated to do, I hated certain of the weapons because the level of power is so enormous, it's so dangerous, so bad. But we have to do what we have to do. We make the best weapons in the world, and we've got a lot of them. And we've given a lot to Israel, frankly. And I mean, Bibi would call me so many times, can you get me this weapon, that weapon, that weapon? Some of them I never heard of, Bibi, and I made them. But we'd get them here, wouldn't we? And they are the best. They are the best. And but you used them well. It also takes people that know how to use them. And you obviously used them very well. But so many that Israel became strong and powerful, which ultimately led to peace. That's what led to peace. So as we celebrate today, let us remember how this nightmare of depravity and death all began. 2 years ago, on the eve of the Simchat Torah holiday, thousands of innocent Israeli civilians were attacked by terrorists, and one of the most evil and heinous desecrations of innocent life the world has ever seen, the worst slaughter of Jews since the Holocaust. The cruelty of October 7th struck to the core of humanity itself. Nobody could believe what they were witnessing. The United States of America grieved alongside you, and we mourned for our own citizens who were so viciously taken that day. And to all the families whose lives were forever changed by the atrocities of that day, and all of the people of Israel, please know that America joins you in those two everlasting vows: never forget and never again. From October 7th until this week, Israel has been a nation at war, enduring burdens that only a proud and faithful people could withstand. It was a very tough period of time. For so many families across this land, it has been years since you've known a single day of true peace. But now at last, not only for Israelis, but also for Palestinians and for many others, the long and painful nightmare is finally over. And as the dust settles, the smoke fades, the debris is removed, and the ashes cleaned from the air, the day that breaks on a region transformed, and a beautiful and much brighter future appears suddenly within your reach. This is now a very exciting time for Israel and for the entire Middle East, because all across the Middle East, the forces of chaos, terror, and ruin that have plagued the region for decades now stand weakened, isolated, and totally defeated. A new coalition of proud and responsible nations is emerging, and because of us, the enemies of all civilization are in retreat. Thanks to the bravery and incredible skill of the Israeli Defense Forces and Operation Rising Lion, guy's central casting. Let's put him in a movie. Look at him. Great job. And my people loved working with you. Loved it. They worked so well together. But many of Iran's top terrorists, including nuclear scientists and commanders, have been extinguished from this earth. And with Operation Midnight Hammer, boy, that's a great name for that, what we did last June. The United States military flew 7 of those beautiful B-2 bombers. They look so beautiful all of a sudden. They were always, I thought they were pretty planes. I had no idea they could do what they did. In fact, we just ordered 28 more of them. A little updated version. We ordered a whole pile of them. And almost 100 other planes went with them, including fighter jets. And we had 52 tankers, big, beautiful, brand new tankers that were loading them up 4 or 5 times. They've traveled 37 hours back and forth. Think of that. But we had tankers all over the sky for all the other planes. We had the F-22s, the F-35s, F-16s. We had a hell of a lot of planes. So we had 52 gas stations in the sky. That's what they call them. I'll tell you, I wouldn't want to be flying one of them. We have our great General Raisin Cain right here. General, stand up. This guy. What a general. Thank you. I asked General Cain, I said, you know, we're having problems with ISIS, and I was in Washington, and I asked, how long would it take to defeat ISIS? And my Washington generals told me, 3, 4, maybe 5 years, sir. I said, I don't get it. We've got the best equipment in the world. Why? So I flew to Iraq, and I met with a man named Cain. He said, what's your first name? He said, they call me Raisin, sir. I said, wait a minute, your name is Raisin Cain? I've been looking for you for a long time. You gotta be kidding. So they told me 3, 4, 5 years to defeat ISIS. And I sit down with him and I say, why is it? I flew there in the dark of night. I landed, I'll never forget it. It was quite a trip. I'm glad I made it because I met him. I said, could I ask you, General? I come down. He said with another general and a sergeant. Everybody was like central casting. They could go into a movie right now. Between him and you guys over here, we could get rich making movies, okay? And they got along so great. That's the beautiful thing, that your military and our military, Bibi, got along so great. But I was told by the television generals in Washington, we have the best equipment in the world. Why is it taking so long? And they said, 4 years. I said, so let me ask you, Raisin, how long would it take you to defeat ISIS? Sir, we can do it in 3 weeks, but you'll probably have some time left over. I said, you gotta be kidding. What the hell are you talking about? They said 4 years. I said, well, sir, look, it's not my place to say, but you're asking me the question. What you have to do is you hit him from the west, you hit him from the north, you hit him from the south, you hit him above, you hit him below. I said, so why didn't they do it? And he didn't want to speak badly of his superiors, which is hard to believe they were his superiors. Should have been the other way around a long time ago, because he's the one that did Operation Hammer. It was flawless. It was flawless. It was absolutely flawless. And I said, so you really think you can do it in 4 weeks? Yes, sir, 100%. You have to do it differently than they were doing it. They were using one base, and it was hundreds of miles away. And he says, we have all these portable bases all over the Middle East. And they didn't want to use them because they didn't want to offend the country where the portable... They wouldn't have even known what the hell the planes were going up, right? They wouldn't have known. But he said, no, they didn't want to defend anybody, offend anybody. And but we can do it in 4 weeks. I said, you sure about that? I'm going to call you back. I'll call you back on Monday. I'm going back to Washington. But you think 4 weeks? Yes, sir, I think we can do it in 4 weeks. We'll have time left over. So I call him on Monday. I say, you think you can do it? 4 weeks. I said, go ahead and do it. He did it. I'll tell you, he did it in 4 weeks, less than 4 weeks. So, General, stand up, please. Again, this is a real general. This is not a television general. He doesn't want to go on television. He doesn't want to go on television. That's it. The other guys love being on television. So we dropped 14 bombs on Iran's key nuclear facilities, totally, as I said originally, obliterating them. And that's been confirmed, and everybody understands it. Together we stopped the #1 state sponsor of terror from obtaining the world's most dangerous weapons. And if you think about it, if we didn't do that, and assuming we made the same deal that we have today, there'd be a dark cloud over this deal. And #1, it wouldn't happen because the other Arab and Muslim nations really wouldn't feel comfortable making the deal that we have now, right? If Iran had that nuclear weapon that they were about 2 months away from having. They would have had it in 2 months or maybe less than that. They were right at, this was our last shot. They looked at it for 22 years. This was our last shot. The pilots told me that. They said, 22 years, sir. They looked at it. Our predecessors looked. They studied it. 3 times a year would do drills on that exact attack. And boy, did they get it right. But let's assume they didn't, and let's assume there was large-scale nuclear weapons in the hands of Iran. We couldn't be here today. Even if we signed the deal, which we couldn't do because a lot of people would not want to have anything to do with it, we took a big cloud off of the Middle East and off of Israel. And it was my honor to help. But isn't it true, though, that can you imagine the same, let's assume, Bibi, the same documents, we had everything the same, but you had somebody out there that was, in the opinion of everybody, all-powerful in the Middle East. They took a big hit, didn't they? Didn't they take a big hit? Boy, oh boy. They got it from one side, from the other. And you know, it would be great if we could make a peace deal with them. And I think that's made. Would you be happy with that? Wouldn't it be nice, I think? Because I think they want to. I think they're tired. Somebody said, sir, they're starting their nuclear program again. I said, let me tell you something. They're not starting anything. They want to survive. The last thing they want to do is start digging holes again in mountains that just got blown up and start. They're not doing it. They want to survive, okay? But I think we have a chance. Steve, you, and I think Jared, come on, I'll call you back for another one. We always bring Jared when we want to get that deal closed. We bring Jared, but Steve, you and Jared and the General and Pete and Marco, you'll get that deal done easy. I think that'll be easy. But first we have to get Russia done. We got to get that one done. If you don't mind, Steve, let's focus on Russia first, all right? We'll get it done. In Lebanon, the dagger of Hezbollah, long aimed at Israel's throat, has been totally shattered. My administration is actively supporting the new president of Lebanon in his mission to permanently disarm Hezbollah's terror brigades. He's doing very well. And build a thriving state at peace with its neighbors. And you're very much in favor of that, I know. And it's good things are happening there, really good things. And with this week's ceasefire, we've achieved the most challenging breakthrough of them all. The most challenging breakthrough maybe ever. I mean, I've never seen anything like it. I've been involved in a lot of success. I have never seen anything like what's going on today all over the world. People are dancing in the streets, not just in Israel. They're dancing in the streets of countries that would have never danced in the street about what's happening today. They're dancing in those streets. So this long and difficult war has now ended. You know, some people say 3,000 years, some people say 500 years, whatever it is. It's the granddaddy of them all. And in an unprecedented achievement, virtually the entire region has endorsed the plan that Gaza will be immediately demilitarized, that Hamas will be disarmed, and Israel's security will no longer be threatened in any way, shape, or form. So Israel, with our help, has won all that they can by force of arms. You've won. I mean, you've won. Now it's time to translate these victories against terrorists on the battlefield into the ultimate prize of peace and prosperity for the entire Middle East. It's about time you were able to enjoy the fruits of your labor. Mr. Opposition Leader. I said he's a very nice opposition leader. I think... No, he's a nice man. Bibi, he's a nice man. Good. He knows what he's doing, right? No, a very nice guy. Well, see, now you can be a little bit nicer, Bibi, because you're not at war anymore, Bibi. But only by embracing the opportunities of this moment can we achieve our goal of ensuring that the horrors of recent years will never happen again. You don't want to have to go through this again. 8 years ago, I came to this region on a very special first trip abroad as the President of the United States. I came here very early at your request. I addressed the leaders of the Arab and Muslim world gathered in Saudi Arabia and said that it was time to build a future free of the grip of extremism and terror. And interestingly, right now, as soon as I'm finished, I'm quite late. You've kept me quite late between opposition leaders and Bibi's brilliant but very long speech. I thought I was going to run up here, make a speech, and then head to Egypt. It didn't work out, though. And you made a pretty long one, too, Sarah. But I liked what you all said. It could be worse. Supposing on top of it, I didn't like what you said. That would be no good, Ron, would it? Ron, you did a great job, by the way, Ron. Yeah. So I'm going to be meeting, actually, in a little while, I'm going to be meeting with the most powerful, the richest nations, really, in the world, although now, with the tariffs, the United States is by far the richest nation in the world, as you probably have been reading. But the richest nations, most powerful nations, you know, tremendous, headed by some tremendous people in many cases. Some cases I wouldn't say necessarily I would endorse, but I will tell you, some incredible people that really helped us make this all possible. So I'll be going there. I'll be quite late. They might not be there by the time I get there, but we're going to give it a shot. But the journey we started back then led to the crushing defeat of the ISIS caliphate, to the monumental Abraham Accords, and ultimately to the historic ceasefire this week, in which many of those same nations really played a very pivotal role, I have to tell you. Steve will tell you that. Jared will tell you that. Together, we've shown that peace is not just a hope that we can dream about. It's a reality we can build upon day by day, person by person, and nation by nation. And because of that, the Middle East is finally ready to embrace its extraordinary potential. You have extraordinary potential in this region. It should now be clear to everyone throughout the region that decades of fomenting terrorism and extremism, jihadism and anti-Semitism have not worked. They haven't worked. They've been a disaster. They've just killed. They've killed. They've backfired completely and totally. They've just totally backfired. Everything that you thought, take it worst case, it's turned out to be worse than that. They have not worked. From Gaza to Iran, those bitter hatreds have delivered nothing but misery, suffering, failure, and death. They've served not to weaken Israel, but to annihilate the very forces that did the most to foment this hatred. And it's really, I mean, everybody that's tried it has become irrelevant. Meanwhile, we've seen those nations that set aside their differences, reached across ancient divides, and pursued engagement are now among the most successful in the region. They're getting along with Israel, and they're doing great. And I can tell you the 4 nations that joined the Abraham Accords early on, and you'd all be doing me a favor, and I'm going to be saying this in a little while to some other friends, would love you all to, is this right, Jared? Join up in the Abraham Accords. We have to join up and get together. You can have that whole thing filled out. We had a very weak administration, worst president in the history of our country by far. And Barack Obama was not far behind, by the way. And they did nothing with this incredible document, the Abraham Accords, but now you can fill them up. Now you have peace, you have people that really like Israel. I'll tell you what, and they like Israel a lot more today than they did even 5 weeks ago. You've made a lot of, you've come back. You've come back strong because it was getting to be a little nasty out there in the world, and ultimately the world wins. You can't beat the world. Oh, I would say to Bibi, it's now time, and he understood it better than anybody, because ultimately, you know, the world's a very big place, and I've said a lot. I said, this piece of land is very small. It's unbelievable what you've done with that tiny, you look at a map even of just, not the world, the Middle East, and you have this little dot, and think of what you've done. It's incredible. It's incredible. But the world is loving Israel again, and I said to Bibi, you know, the world is big and it's strong. And Ron, ultimately, the world wins. And we don't have to worry about that now. But there was getting to be a period of time over the last few months, you know, the world wanted peace and Israel wanted peace. Everybody did. Everybody did. And what a victory it's been, right? What a victory it's been. If you would have gone on for 3, 4 more years, keep fighting, it was getting bad. It was getting heated. The timing of this is brilliant. And I said, Bibi, you're going to be remembered for this far more than if you kept this thing going, kill. It would be it would not be the same. And I just want to congratulate you for having the courage to say, that's it, we've won. And now let's enjoy our lives and let's rebuild Israel and make it stronger and bigger and better than it's ever been before. We're going to do that. Took a lot of guts. And the choice for Palestinians could not be more clear. This is their chance to turn forever from the path of terror and violence. It's been extreme, to exile the wicked forces of hate that are in their midst. And I think that's going to happen. I've met some people over the last couple of months that want to see it happen very much. And after tremendous pain and death and hardship, now is the time to concentrate on building their people up instead of trying to tear Israel down. We don't want that to happen again. And the total focus of Gazans must be on restoring the fundamentals of stability, safety, dignity, and economic development so they can finally have the better life that their children really do deserve after all these decades of horror. I intend to be a partner in this effort in the sense that we're going to help and we're going to do something that became unbelievably popular. Everybody wants to be on it. It's called the Board of Peace, okay? How about that? Is that a beautiful name, like a board of peace? The only bad thing from my standpoint, every single nation involved has asked me to be the chair, and I'll tell you, I'm very busy. I didn't count on that, but you know what? If we do it, we'll do it right, and we have unbelievable power and wealth, because you're going to need wealth. You're going to need wealth to rebuild things, and they have wealth like few people have wealth. I want to thank the Arab and Muslim nations for their commitment, because they've made to support a safe rebuilding of Gaza and beyond. I have many Arab countries, very wealthy countries, that came up and said, we'll put up tremendous amounts of money to get rebuild Gaza. And I think that's going to happen. The power, they want dignity, they want to come forward, and they want to say, and I want to say who they are, because what they're doing is going to be, I think, something that you're going to be very impressed with, Bibi. And you need that. You need the kind of economic power that they have, and they want to see it work. And they want to see it be safe, and they want to see it be good for Israel, too. And as much money as it will be, and it's a lot, as you can see, it's a lot. For these countries, it's relatively little relative to their worth. It's really a lot of money, like money, like most people could never even conceive, but for these countries, it's not that much, especially because it ensures success and stability in the Middle East, which is what they want to see. So many of them will be with us in Egypt in a little while, I think. I'm not sure. They may be gone. They may have taken their Boeing 747s and left. I said, what kind of a plane do you fly? 747. I said, that's a large plane. No, they may have. Steve, do you think they've left on their their brand new Boeing 747s? Or I don't know. We're going to find out soon. It's going to be a big story. There'll be 2 people left, and they'll be the 2 poorest ones. But it will be the wealthiest and most powerful group of nations. So the group that we have assembled, that's waiting for us, is the wealthiest and most powerful group ever assembled at one time. There has never been a group like this, and they're only looking for good. They want good. They're going to do good. And as those commitments are made, I'm going to let the world know who's doing it, because they really deserve to get the credit, and some of them probably won't want the credit, but they deserve it. It's more obvious than ever that the productive and responsible nations of this region should not be enemies or adversaries. You should be partners and eventually even friends, and that's what's going to happen. I know it. Together you can stand against the forces of chaos. Yeah, you go ahead. That's an important point. Because you can stand against the forces of chaos that threaten all of your interests, and it's always a big threat, and unleash incredible prosperity and opportunity for all the people of these lands, and that's what's going to happen. You're going to unleash numbers and success, the likes of which Israel has never been able to think of, because you're so firm, and you should be, and you've done the right thing in defending yourself. You're not going to have to worry so much about it. You've won, and now you can build, and you can do things that you never even thought possible. When you put that genius into doing something else, it's going to be something it's going to be a miracle. The miracle in the desert, it's going to be amazing. And it already is in a true sense. But it'll be wonderful when you can spend time thinking about other than war and defense and offense also. To that end, it's my firm hope and dream, frankly, that together the Abraham Accords will turn out to be everything that we thought they would. Those 4 countries were very, very brave in doing it. They did it at a very early point, and every single one of them benefits unbelievably financially. And if you noticed, even in this bad period that we just went through, they all remained a member of the Abraham Accords. They've done unbelievably well. And you know who you are, and I want to thank you. And they've stayed because of loyalty, but they've also stayed because it was really good business. They've made a lot of money being members, and you're going to all, I hope that every one of the countries that we're seeking, Jared, I hope they join quickly. No games, no nothing. Just join, get it. It's going to be a great peacemaker. It's really going to bring it together beyond anybody's wildest dream. So instead of building fortresses to keep enemies at bay, the nations of this region should be building infrastructure to weave your commerce closer together, because you've got to compete with the big world out there in commerce now. It's a different kind of competition. Instead of making weapons and missiles, the wealth of this region should flow to schools and medicine, industry, and frankly, the new hot thing, artificial intelligence. It's a lot of intelligence you're going to have to be thrown off to pay back these sums of money that they're doing. But that's really the hot one. And I might say that the United States, a year ago, was a dead country. I say it to people. I heard it first from the King of Saudi Arabia. I then heard it from UAE. I heard it from Qatar. I heard it from many other countries. A year ago, the United States of America was a dead country. Now it's the hottest country anywhere in the world. It is the hottest. There's no question about it.
Okay.
In fact...
OK, we've been listening to Donald Trump for about an hour or so now. I think he may have actually got to the start of his actual speech and his actual what he's actually got on his autocue. I mean, he's riffing and he's being Donald Trump. We just got the last couple of moments of my show and we're going to go to the news as well. But Sam Armstrong's still with me. I'm Julia Hartley-Brewer, if you were just wondering. It's the quietest I've ever been for an hour.
That's right.
I mean, look, he's earned his moment in the sun.
Yes.
And what was hilarious, because he was actually criticising Netanyahu and others for giving long speeches, which is hilarious. But there's no doubt at all, some of the things that he has had to say in terms of people dancing in the streets, a long and painful nightmare is finally over. We took a cloud off of the Middle East. This is a historic dawn of a new Middle East. This is the start of a golden age for Israel and the Middle East. So many said we were wasting our time. I mean, a lot of this could be true.
There's a lot of truth in there, and this is peak Trump, but in a sense, if he gets to do it any day, this is the day. Now, look, there's a lot still to come, and I'm sorry to strike a note of caution, but while I am optimistic that Hamas will now leave Gaza, I don't think they've got any cards left to play. There's a big if there, and he's now making clear that he wants to see the work of his first term, which was Abraham Accords signed with the likes of UAE and Oman and others with Israel, normalising relations, expand, and obvious categories or next steps of the Saudi Arabia and Qatar to open up relations. But look, I tell you what, if we do get good relations with in the Middle East, it's not just good news overall. It's good news for us because oil prices can come down, which means fuel filling up your car gets cheaper.
As we know from Ukraine, if you know everywhere now, we are in a very small world and everything impacts on everyone else. And